Okay, well, our next keynote speaker here is William Henry. Now, I've known William for a long time. We've been at a lot of things together, and he was on my radio show just last week. But you have your own radio show too, don't you?
Yes, Revelations.
And William has written 17 books.
Yeah.
He said on the air, I've written 17 too. My daughter said, well, it's not a competition. Okay, but William is just loaded with information, and he's like me. He has a curiosity that wants to know everything. So I can identify with William very easily. You do research, you want to know. Mm-hmm. So we're the same kind of people. But your title intrigues me for what you're going to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. So come on up, William.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Dolores, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you again, Dolores, for having me here. I'm very much looking forward to talking with you all about our presentation tonight. We'll be at our table tomorrow. Am I feeding back here, or am I okay? It just sounds like I've got some echo. The title of our presentation is The Judgment Day Device. Our subtitle, Lost Secrets of the Throne of the Second Coming, the Ark of the Covenant, and the Messiah's End Time Kit. And our premise is that, the premise of the book is that it's Judgment Day. Not the end of the world, but certainly the end of the world as we know it. The shift has happened. And now we are living in the first days of what we think of as a new dawn, a new beginning. And there's many prophecies that have yet to be fulfilled about this time. And in part, we're going to be discussing those prophecies. But before we do that, I want to go back and bring a little bit of original insight from the ancient Egyptians into what Judgment Day is really all about. Because the idea of Judgment Day comes from the ancient Egyptian tradition, where after death, the heart of the initiate is weighed against the feather of cosmic truth. And what the gods want to know, and here's our initiate here in the center here being escorted to the throne of Osiris. What the gods want to know is, how light-hearted of a person are you? So as a matter of fact, according to the ancient Egyptians, Judgment Day is every day. We live Judgment Day in every thought, every breath, every moment of our lives, because we always have only two choices in how we're going to view the world out here. We're either going to put more love into the world or more fear into the world. And dependent upon which choice we make is what the world reflects back to us. So the ancient Egyptians were literally obsessed with this concept of making sure that their thoughts were in as highest alignment with their highest self as they possibly could be, because they knew that if they were able to successfully go through this process here, when their heart here is weighed against the feather of cosmic truth, that then they could continue on their spiral of evolution. If their heart weighed more than the feather, it was back to diapers, and they got to do it all over again. The ancient Egyptians believed in reincarnation, and their fundamental principle was that our lives are spent on a cycle of evolution, a spiral of evolution actually, and we're constantly moving upwards on that spiral, and every breath that we take, every moment of our lives could or should be focused on our soul's highest development, our ascension of our soul, as a matter of fact. So in the Egyptian motifs here, we see it plainly illustrated where the initiate is waiting for the outcome, and if the heart weighs more than the feather, here's the recycling program right here. You're devoured by the soul eater, and you get to come back all the way through the whole cycle once again. So anytime we're thinking about Judgment Day, we have to incorporate these concepts. And later, of course, the Judeo-Christian tradition omitted a lot of the key metaphysics of Judgment Day and turned it into this sort of judgmental, end-of-the-world kind of scenario, which was kind of a dire, actually, scenario for the soul for the most part. So here in the detail, we see Osiris on his throne with the initiate having passed the test, now gets to ascend into the heavenly realms and dwell for eternity as a celestial or a light being along with the other successful souls. Now, the thing about it is that according to the ancient Egyptians, one could ascend or enter the realm of the gods consciously by means of a ladder, or in fact the Pharaoh's throne, which they said could rise up and fly. And this is why in depictions of Osiris, who is the Egyptian god of rebirth, renewal, resurrection, the god of the dead, you will see his throne is covered with feathers. This is because it is his celestial vehicle. It is an ascension vehicle upon which he and others are able to travel into the stars. Now, another key point about the ancient Egyptian belief system is that they were not only obsessed with the idea of Judgment Day and purity and righteousness, but also with the concepts of rebirth, renewal, regeneration. This is why their civilization lasted for over 3,000 years, and they were a very advanced civilization. In fact, one that possibly rivals our own, if not surpasses it. I mean, they've literally left us mysteries such as the Great Pyramid that we can't even crack today. And they tell us that the pyramid was a resurrection machine, a transfiguration machine, a Stargate for the soul. And now we're just starting to come into awareness of what this means. Ancient Egypt actually was the first green civilization. We hear a lot in the news about people wanting to create a green culture, a green civilization. Ancient Egypt is the place to go because it appears they had free energy devices, they had advanced technology that we're only just now being able to imagine, conceive, and ultimately recapitulate or rebuild. So the key point here is that Osiris, in this imagery, informs us about the idea of the rebirth of our soul, of resurrection, but in particular, the ascension of our soul and our ability to go and dwell in the heavenly realms. Now, at the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, we see the same feathered throne with this pharaoh sitting on top of it. He's got a couple of tools or instruments in his hand. One is a staff, very much like the staff that Moses used to part the Red Sea, and he's got a key of life in his hand. These are the tools or implements of the soul that gives it soul power. And what the Egyptians have done here that's very fascinating is they've taken the feathered throne, the ascension throne, and put it on a ship here that they called the Ark or Bark of the Millions of Years. The Ark of the Millions of Years. And they tell us that these are actually celestial beings. These are humans who have completed the cycle of earthly evolution and now dwell as star beings or celestial beings, traveling for eternity on the Ark of the Millions of Years. What I noticed was that the way they portrayed the shape of that ship is identical to the way modern science portrays a wormhole. And the idea is that we could enter the mouth of the wormhole here, travel perhaps millions, if not billions of years of space-time, light years of space-time, and exit at another location, maybe even another dimension. And you have to wonder, this is something that's way out at the edge of our sci-fi science today, where we envision this warp craft going through the mouth of the wormhole, traveling through it and coming out the other end. But the ancient Egyptians clearly had a concept of this, and they connected it with the idea of ascension, saying that these are transformed humans who have now become light beings, celestial beings, star beings, and can travel the stars as these celestial beings through wormholes. Now that's a very advanced concept for supposedly primitive people to have, but they plainly had this technology presented on the temple, in the ceiling here at the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, as well as elsewhere. And I'm convinced that the ancient Egyptians were very familiar with the concept of Stargate and wormhole travel. In fact, it was probably the basis for their metaphysics. It was a Stargate-based metaphysics, and they were the first on earth to tell us about the transformation of the body into a being of light. Their focus, of course, was on Osiris, who's shown here in his resurrected form, traveling to Orion, which was the destination for the souls, according to the ancient Egyptian Stargate metaphysics. They believed that our souls came from Orion and then will go through Orion once again en route to the soul's source place in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So here's another example, this one from a later dynasty. We see the same ship now kind of stylized. We've got the two angels here on either side. The pharaoh's in his blue orb. This is the Egyptian symbol for water, and up on top is the Egyptian hieroglyph or symbol for heaven. And so what we get here is that this figure is sailing on his ship of eternity into heaven or into the heavenly realms. Very powerful piece of jewelry, beautiful golden and lapis combination. So now we go forward, we leave Egypt behind, and now we come into the Christian concept of Judgment Day, which is described in the book of Revelation, chapter 20, verse 12. That's a little bit of joke, inside joke between man and God. Ha ha. Revelation chapter 20, verse 12 is the end of the world. Well, we survived the end of the world, didn't we? We're just fine. The shift has happened, and now we're moving forward. But in Christianity, when they picked up and adopted the Egyptian concept, we didn't talk about the throne of Osiris any longer. Now we talk instead about the throne of Christ, who is the judge or the balancer of Christianity. And when Christ is shown in Christian Last Judgment art, he is shown on a 360-degree arc or bow, a rainbow, that represents his throne. And we're going to talk about the meaning of that as we continue, but just for the moment, we want to just familiarize ourselves with some of this imagery. Instead of the Egyptian god Anubis, we have Michael as the balancer of souls. It's the same concept. The heart is not weighed against the feather of cosmic truth. Instead, the heart or the soul is weighed by Michael against a perfect soul. And what the Christian judge Michael wants to know is, are you ready to now go and dwell into the heavenly realms? It's the same as the the Egyptian concept, but the players have changed just a little bit, as well as some of the concepts. But the basic idea stays the same. And then ultimately, again, we're meeting Christ on his rainbow throne in the heavenly realms. Another example here of Christ enthroned on the rainbow ring with the Archangel Michael as the weigher of souls. Pure Egyptian metaphysics now transposed into the Christian tradition with different players featured, but again, very similar concepts. Now, at Judgment Day, Christians seek signs for the second coming of Christ. Jews await the Messiah because, of course, the Jews don't believe that Christ was the Messiah. And Islam awaits their Messiah, whom they call the Mahdi. And what we're going to talk about later is how all of the events in the Middle East right now revolve around their belief in the return of these figures. All the power players, all the power moves in the Middle East right now are relative to this concept of the return of Christ, the appearance of the Jewish Messiah, and the return of the Islamic Messiah, the Mahdi. What most don't realize in the story that's behind the news in the Middle East is that all three of these figures are identified by the same device, the Ark of the Covenant. And according to each of these big three religions' prophecies, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all say that one of these three figures will recover the Ark of the Covenant and place it in the rebuilt Solomon's Temple atop mystic Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. There's a race to recover the Ark of the Covenant that's unfolding right now on a global scale with huge implications if the wrong group of people actually recover the Ark, at least wrong from the perspective of the other two religions who won't be privy to what results as a result of the recovery of the Ark. So let's talk about this Judgment Day device, the Ark of the Covenant, prophecy to be recovered at this time. In traditional Christian art, you will see it portrayed as a golden box with an arcing rainbow on it. That's the same arcing rainbow that Christ is shown upon in the Last Judgment art we saw a moment ago. You will see two angels on either side. They're portrayed here as seraphim angels. The seraphim are the highest order of angels. They flank the throne of Christ in his celestial kingdom called SION, or the celestial Jerusalem. And the idea is that there's a connecting link between the earthly and the cosmic SION, with these beings coming and going back and forth through this divine conduit, which I believe is actually a Stargate. When most people think of the Ark of the Covenant, maybe they've seen the Indiana Jones movie, maybe they've read some of the popular books about the Ark. The popular conception of the Ark is that it's a golden box made by Moses at the star base of the mystical Mount Sinai. It was constructed to house the Ten Commandments. But actually, there are other tools or implements that are housed within this box as well. It housed the rod of Aaron, the brother of Moses, whose name means enlightenment. So this is the rod of enlightenment. This rod is supposed to have budded, and it's referred to as the scepter or rod or staff of God. Moses used it to part the Red Sea. It contains a flask of manna, which is this celestial or star food that fed the Israelites for 40 years during their wandering in the wilderness. And it contains what's known as the cruse of sacred oil called chrism, this magic anointing oil that has all kinds of supernatural properties. So actually, the Ark of the Covenant can be thought of as more like a kit. It's a toolbox, if you will, that houses these awesomely powerful supernatural devices that give the controller of this device, or the owner of this device, the user of this device, immense, almost godlike power. So this is the attraction of everybody from Charlemagne to Adolf Hitler to Saddam Hussein up into the present era, where figures like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, as we'll see, the former president of Iran, he just left office last month, are seeking this power tool because they know if they get the Ark of the Covenant, that puts them in prime position for the unfolding of Judgment Day. Some background on the Ark. It was crafted by a master craftsman named Bezalel, who was given wisdom or light directly by God. He was infused with the Holy Spirit. And when you look up the Holy Spirit, you find out that that refers to all the divine wisdom of the universe. So the way I look at that is that this is a tip-off that there's something really powerful going on with the Ark. I mean, you're led to believe it's a simple golden box that houses these, kind of unusual items in it. And if that's the case, why would God download all the divine wisdom of the universe into this guy to build a simple golden box? He wouldn't. I think this is a tip-off that we're dealing with something far more profound and supernatural than previously supposed. The second thing we have to recognize is that the Ark of the Covenant is a copy of a heavenly original. So there's one of these devices in the celestial SION, which is the name of the celestial kingdom of Christ and the other ascended beings. And then there's the earthly copy that was made by Bezalel. And it was made after a pattern, a blueprint, if you will, given to him by God. In my thinking, I believe that this pattern was probably downloaded right into this craftsman's consciousness. And he probably was like a sort of an ancient Jewish Nikola Tesla, a famous early 20th century inventor who was credited with all kinds of time travel devices, ray gun weapons, he invented radio, even had an idea for the internet back in the early 20th century, as well as free energy. And it was said that Tesla could create working models of his inventions in his imagination. He didn't have to build anything out here. He could build it in his head and make sure that it worked. And I believe Bezalel was sort of like an early Jewish version of Nikola Tesla. And we have to ask ourselves, why would God give him all this wisdom to make a simple golden box? Again, my answer is he wouldn't. We're talking about something vastly, maybe even beyond our comprehension, or something that we only have today, the technological kind of consciousness to be able to really imagine what this thing was truly all about. The Israelites carried the ark during their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. During this trek, the ark functioned as an all-purpose device. And I prefer to call it a device because when you look up the word device in the dictionary, a device is a tool, it's an appliance, but it's also a sign and a symbol. And the ark functioned on all of those levels. It was clearly a tool. They clearly used it as an appliance, but importantly, it was a sign and a symbol of their connection or covenant with God, which means it has a consciousness component because symbols link consciousness. It was a visible sign and symbol of God's presence and protection. And in fact, as an appliance, Joshua used it to part the Jordan River, which is what we see being portrayed here in this beautiful painting by James Tissot from the Jewish Museum in Brooklyn. We see the high priest dressed in white. They look like Essenes because later the Essenes would pick up on this technology as well. But what Tissot does here is something very fascinating and something that's important for us to connect with. He shows the Ark of the Covenant as feathered. The Bible doesn't say anything about the ark being feathered, but I believe that Tissot is really got a unique insight into the ark, and he realizes What we will realize as we continue our presentation is that the Ark of the Covenant is, according to the Bible, the throne of God. And just like the throne of Osiris, which was feathered, the Ark of the Covenant is an ascension device. It's the ascension throne of God. It is a device through which God manifests when he wants to step down his vibration or frequency and manifest on the earth plane. So very important here that Tissot shows the Ark as feathered, because when you see feathers on a device or an individual, it indicates flight or ascension or something to do with the angelic realms. We also see the two angels up on top with their feathers touching, or rather with their wings touching, another key detail referred to in the Bible. So Tissot has done us a real service here by providing this very fascinating depiction of the Ark, feathered, the key detail of the angels on the mercy seat with their wingtips touching. And I believe that what we're seeing here is a very purposeful and profound connection between the feathered ascension throne of Osiris and the feathered throne that the Ark of the Covenant is referred to as in the book of Exodus. Now, there's some talk that the Ark of the Covenant actually came from Egypt. A couple of years ago, February 2012, we were with a group and we went to the Temple of Time in Abydos, the Temple of Thoth. And on the wall there, I see this right here. This looks exactly like the Ark of the Covenant. But actually what this is the power shrine of the Egyptian Pharaoh. But you could clearly get a concept here, or the idea that the ancient Egyptians knew about the Ark of the Covenant before Moses received that plan or blueprint on the star base at Mount Sinai. And I refer to it as a star base because it was really, Sinai is actually a Stargate, is what it is. It's the mystic mountain where God's divine light would manifest. And when Moses climbs Mount Sinai, he has a face-to-face encounter with God. So here we are looking at what you could easily say, well, that looks just like the Ark of the Covenant. And in fact, there are other ark-like thrones that we see in various temples in ancient Egypt. This one is, this shows Akhenaten on his throne with the two angels on either side. Actually, it's Isis and Nephthys, the feathered goddesses, who now take the place of the two feathered angels on either side of the Ark throne. We've got the Ark throne here, sitting on the bark or Ark of the Millions of Years. So there's very good evidence to make the connection that the Ark of the Covenant was absolutely known to the ancient Egyptians, and maybe the Israelites just grabbed it on their way out of Egypt, and then used it to pass through the Red Sea and to part the River Jordan and do all the things that they did during their wandering in the wilderness. Joshua also used the Ark of the Covenant to take Jericho. So here's Jericho up here, and he also used it to command the sun to stand still on Gideon. And what we see here is Joshua, who's the mighty warrior of the Israelite nation. He's the successor to Moses. Here's our priests in white. The men in white are always the ones with the Ark of the Covenant. White symbolizes purity as well as advanced consciousness, and we're told that you had to be a pure being in order to get close to the Ark of the Covenant. Otherwise, the vibration of the device would zap you. And some people actually think it's radioactive. I don't know if that's for sure or not, but it's an interesting speculation. But again, here they are with the Ark of the Covenant, causing profound miracles to happen. So it clearly was some kind of an all-purpose miracle device that had numerous capabilities. This is a recreation of the Ark of the Covenant in the George Washington Freemasonic Memorial in Alexandria, Virginia. Really powerful place. And once again, we see the Ark as a fairly simple box. We've got the two angels up on top. Their wingtips are touching. And you can easily look at that and say, yep, that's the Ark of the Covenant. But what I'm going to show you is that this is actually part of the Ark of the Covenant. Identifying this as the Ark of the Covenant, in my view, is sort of like pointing someone at a computer screen and saying, yep, that's the computer, but never showing the power cord that goes with it, the keyboard, the mouse, let alone the processor inside of it, or the software, the consciousness that makes the device work. And this is where so many of the commentators on the Ark of the Covenant have kind of led us down a dead-end path, because they don't ever show us the complete Ark of the Covenant. Like here, you can't even see the rod of enlightenment, you can't see the manna, you can't see the cruse of sacred oil. But those are the key components of the complete ark. So as we look at these, we want to think, well, okay, this is part of the Ark of the Covenant, but it's not the whole thing. And what we're going to show as we continue here is the whole thing. And my reason for insisting on that is that, guys, we've got a major race on the planet between the powers that be of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the powers that be know that in order for their guy to be revealed as the real Christ Messiah or Mahdi, they're going to have to bring out the Ark of the Covenant. And my take is that if somebody brings us out here a made in China golden box like this and says this is the Ark of the Covenant, we're going to know it's a fake appearance of this messianic figure, because those in the know will know what we know here shortly about what the Ark of the Covenant really is. So we'll hold that for a moment. Most Christians, Jews, and Muslims don't realize two additional facts about the Ark of the Covenant. First, there are two trends of scholarly thought about the Ark. In addition to being thought of as a simple golden box, the Ark is thought of as the throne of God. And second, and here's a very important point, an illuminated being is described sitting on this throne and riding upon it from heaven to earth. The Bible says so. And when I started this research, it just shocked me that none of the best-selling books about the Ark of the Covenant, and there have been several that have sold into the millions of copies within the past 10 years, don't even mention this fact. And it makes me think that some of these guys don't even read the Bible when they're writing about the Ark of the Covenant, because the Bible tells us point blank exactly what the Ark of the Covenant is, what it looks like, and what it does. So let's look into that for a moment. In Israelite thought, Yahweh, who is the Old Testament God, is imagined on an immense throne located in the Temple of Solomon, which is atop Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, in the most holy place with his feet propped on the Ark of the Covenant, which is his footstool, according to the Bible. So the Ark is his throne and his footstool. There's a very influential text, the book of Ezekiel, which describes the being on this Ark throne as something that seemed like human form. The prophet goes on to describe this human-like figure in detail, especially focusing on its luminosity. So we're talking about a glowing, a light being sitting on the Ark throne. Steven Spielberg didn't show you that in the Indiana Jones movie. I wish he had, because that would have been an opportunity to really get into the true function of the Ark of the Covenant. It's a Stargate, is what it is. It's a Stargate device through which this luminous humanoid figure manifests. It was, in this figure, we are told, is covered with fire, and a rainbow surrounded the throne and the figure. So this is a Middle Ages depiction of Ezekiel and Ezekiel's wheels, which is one of the craft of the celestial beings, and gives us a sense of what the imagination was like at that time. But here we're looking at a luminous being, rainbow-like, as Ezekiel said the figure on the Ark throne looked like. He's sitting on a throne, he's got his feet on the footstool, he's got all this luminosity around him, he's holding in his hand some kind of a power object here. He looks like a rainbow being, and looks like a pretty powerful dude. Borderline scary, in fact, if you thought about it. Interesting story. Oh, and look at the concentric rings above the figure. Whenever you see concentric rings in sacred art like this, it symbolizes two things. It symbolizes sound or vibration. So there's a vibration emanating from this light being. And two, it symbolizes a portal or a gateway. So I believe that we can safely interpret this in both of those ways. This luminous being has come through this portal or gateway, is now sitting on the throne, and has this lightning-like energy and rainbow energy around it. Where did I get this photo, you're asking? I got this photo in a very extraordinary place. And here's the power object in his hand. Clearly we're talking about Yahweh here on his throne. This photo comes from this room right here, which is the Congressional Reading Room in the Library of Congress. It's off limits to the public. The chief librarian of the Library of Congress allowed me in the room because I had written a book about the art and symbolism of the dome of the U.S. Capitol, which is also an ascension dome. It's all Stargate imagery inside the dome of the U.S. Capitol. And she actually listens to me on Coast to Coast AM. And when I came to visit this day to the Library of Congress and I introduced myself to her, she said, "I know who you are." And she said, "Is George Nuri as nice in person as he sounds on the air?" And right then I knew I was golden. And because she had listened to me on the air and loves George. So thank you, George. And she let me in this room for a couple hours alone. Congress was not in session at the time. And what you find in this room is there are 7 panels on the ceiling. The one at the end is red, the next one's orange, the next one's yellow, the next one's green, the next one's blue. Yahweh's sitting in the purple one in the center, and then you go on into the violet one. Those are the colors of the chakras. Those are the colors of the rainbow, with Yahweh sitting on his throne in the center of it. And at the top of the room is this goddess here sitting on her throne with the arcing rainbow above her. Now, I don't know what your congressman or senator is thinking about when they enter this room, but I doubt it has to do with ascension, stargates, and everything else that this room is actually encoded with. But the fact of the matter is that's what we see on the ceiling of this really powerful room. And here's this goddess with her on her throne with the arcing stargate above her. So here's a 4th century BC depiction of Yahweh, the Old Testament God, according to the Bible. The prophet Isaiah also saw him on his throne, and he wrote, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne." He's in the Holy of Holies of Solomon's temple. He's high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple, and above him stood the seraphim. So here is Yahweh in the 4th century BC imagination. He's on his winged ring, or his celestial throne. Now, some would go off and ask you to consider that that's actually a flying saucer, some kind of flying Toyota type of a thing, some hardware device. But the fact of the matter is that this is a luminous light being. His throne is not a flying Toyota. His throne is a celestial vehicle referred to as the Merkaba throne, the space-time light vehicle. It's an organic light vehicle, a living vehicle that this being travels the cosmos in, and it's portrayed as a winged ring. Here's another example of Yahweh as a luminous being on his celestial or flying throne, and this happens to be above an image of Mary and the baby Jesus. Here he is up here. So when we see Yahweh accurately portrayed, he's in some kind of a winged ring or a celestial vehicle, a luminous vehicle that will then sort of dock with the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, that is a very good way of thinking of the Ark of the Covenant, is that in fact it is a docking station, because there's one of these in the celestial SION, and then they put a copy of it on Earth as the other end of it. So it's like the receiver, if you will, for what is transmitted from the celestial SION. And what we find as we continue are additional descriptions that tell us more about this figure. The Ark of the Covenant and the throne are equated, for example, in 1 Kings, where we hear, "Therefore hear the word of the Lord, I saw the Lord sitting on his throne." And then we continue in 1 Samuel, where it says, "So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim." What these statements are making clear is that the Lord's throne is the Ark of the Covenant. It's very explicit. And so when we're looking at images such as this of the Lord's throne, which is also Ezekiel's wheels here with the seraphim here in the center, here's the Lord up here on his rainbow throne, which is why Jesus sits on the rainbow, by the way. He is on his Ark of the Covenant throne, which in Jewish mysticism they call the Merkaba, or throne chariot. And Second Temple mysticism, remember there was the first Temple of Solomon that was destroyed around 600 BC. Then Jesus learned and studied at the Second Temple in Jerusalem. It was at the time of the Second Temple where they call this the Merkaba, or throne chariot. And these Jewish mystics well knew that this wasn't a flying Toyota. They knew that the Merkaba vehicle of the Lord is a celestial throne, a Stargate device, because they clearly will describe it as a portal here in a moment, upon which the Lord manifests as a luminous, radiant being who's rainbow colored. And those are the keys that we're looking for. Now, I have superimposed this cube over the throne for a reason, and that is because it offers to us a primer of how we've got to kind of adapt what they call the Merkaba mysticism or the Merkaba consciousness that will enable us to more fully connect with the throne. What we're looking at here is actually 12 lines projected on a screen that are brought to life in your imagination. And the idea is that if this three-dimensional cube are 12 lines projected on the screen and brought to life in our imagination, then so too is this cup of water. In fact, what they tell us is that everything out here is brought to life in our imagination. And while we think of this podium as solid and everything we see around us as solid, it's actually all built up in our imagination. And the idea from this cube is that it tells us that we always have a choice in how we're going to view things out here. Because if you look at the cube from one perspective, it looks like we're looking into it. But now if we shift our perspective, it looks like we're looking down into the cube and a completely different dimension or cube appears. Can you all make it shift or jump? Okay. So the idea is that we can either put fear into this cube or we can put love into it. It's our decision, and these are the only two ways that we have to perceive everyone and everything out here. Every moment of our lives is judgment day for us. We're judging constantly. Love, fear, love, fear, love, fear, love, fear. It's one or the other. And if we want more love in our world, then we better make sure that we're putting love out into it, seeing through the eyes of love. Because otherwise we're going to be in fear, and fear will be the result of our experience. Fear, of course, is considered a lower vibration. So let's imagine that fear is down here and love is up here. Well, the idea is that once we take our training wheels off, and we can imagine, if we walked around for one day with this cube out in front of us for 24 hours and recognize that every single moment we bring everything in front of us to life in our imagination and we choose which way we're going to go, then that's going to prepare us for the next level of our consciousness, which is when the cube, the three-dimensional cube, now shoots off into all these other dimensions. And now it becomes what's called the fourth dimensional hypercube or tesseract. It's these parallel worlds, these peripheral areas that we can't see because most of the time we're so locked in fear that these higher vibrational entities or beings dwell. And they have the ability to access our three-dimensional world, our little world, because they're coming from the much bigger world out here. The prophets, the mystics of the past, they had the ability to tune their consciousness to the much wider world, the fourth dimensional world where these luminous light beings dwell. Average people probably wouldn't have been able to see them, perceive them, or feel them. So that's a key component of our arc quest here, is to expand our consciousness into its outermost reaches if possible. A second thing we need to know about the ark is that it manifests what's called the mystical Shekinah glory, or the divine presence, which is visualized as a brilliant beam of white light or a rainbow that appears between the two cherubim of the Ark of the Covenant and is seen through the eyes of the heart. Fear-based eyes will not see the divine presence. Just won't. Only through the eyes of love, through the eyes of the heart, can we connect with the divine radiance of the Ark or of these divine beings. A very key component of the Ark of the Covenant teaching is being able to see our world through the eyes of the heart, through the eyes of love. So if you see the Ark as a box, as a simple golden box, as did movie makers like Spielberg and others, you're seeing not through the eyes of the heart, you're seeing through the eyes of the mind. But only when we open our heart do we then see the Ark as this device of ultimate love and power, true power, the power of love, rather than the love of power. Most of the Ark seekers seek it for the love of power, not the power of love, but clearly love is the power of the Ark of the Covenant. There's no doubt about it. And the ancient Egyptians seem to have intuited that, because once again, the two angels on either side of the Ark throne here are the very same as the two Egyptian goddesses, Isis and Nephthys here, who are the Egyptian goddesses of love. So as we continue now, we're going to see the ark through the eyes of love. We're going to look now into the Jewish book, mystical book, the Zohar, in which the Ark of the Covenant manifests as a pillar or beam of light that serves as a conduit for the ascent of souls, the souls of the righteous, the good-hearted ones, to paradise. This pillar is called the foundation of Mount Sion, which is thought of as a cosmic center, and Sion is another name for the mountain atop which the Ark of the Covenant was placed. The pillar of light is a plasma pillar. Most of the universe, about 99% of it, is plasma. It's a conduit that emanates from the Ark of the Covenant, and this pillar of light, or love, is the throne of God. And there is that pillar right there manifesting from the ark. In Jewish mysticism, the term Zadok, or righteous, is also given to this cosmic pillar. And the word righteous simply means to live the good or godly way. And the godly way of living is through the heart. So here we have this beautiful painting by Benjamin West. The men in white carry the ark, and this mystical pillar, this conduit that goes right into the heavens, manifests from the ark. This is what I call the Stargate. If the ark is a Stargate device, what it does is it manifests, and here's the Israelite priest dancing before it, the high priest. What it does is it opens this pillar or portal through which these divine beings can descend. Remember, in the Indiana Jones movie, Spielberg showed it as a weapon, and that was the reason why they sought the Ark of the Covenant. It could be used as a weapon if you don't have an open heart. But instead, if you open the heart, then what you realize, as the Israelites did, is that the Ark of the Covenant, in fact, is this cosmic conduit that links earth with heaven. And what we see here are the Israelites who are lining up to get close to this pure vibration of light and love. So perhaps you'll take a moment now to open your own heart and connect with this magnificent pillar of love that's manifesting from the ark. Because remember, it's all consciousness. It's a consciousness device. It's a sign of, or the ark is a symbol for a consciousness aspect, or an aspect of consciousness that's within us. And you have it within your ability to open your heart and link with this divine light manifesting from the ark. What we must fill in is the realization that this luminous pillar manifesting from the ark is actually a portal. It's a stargate through which the righteous, the fully realized humans, could pass to the heavenly Sion. Think about that. Think about if this device were to manifest right now in the hands of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, Benjamin Netanyahu, Barack Obama. What would they do with such a device? Would they know what to do with such a device? Is our world ready to have such a magnificent energy manifest on the planet, through which those who were prepared could ascend into a heavenly realm by riding this beam of light that manifests from this all-powerful Judgment Day device? This is why I call it the Judgment Day device. This pillar is an incandescent, multicolored pillar, according to the Zohar. It's at the center of Eden, also called Sion, upon which souls are capable of ascending through an opening in heaven. Now, we don't talk about openings in heaven like they did in the Zohar during the Middle Ages. We don't say the heavens open. We say a portal open, a stargate open. But it has exactly the same meaning. And I've paid a lot of attention in my books, The Secret of Sion, and also my Judgment Day device book, to all the times in the Bible where they say, the heavens opened, and the Holy Spirit descended. The heavens opened, and Jesus ascended. The heavens opened, and something happened. The heavens are constantly opening in the Bible. And I believe those are all references to stargates. So this pillar is a conduit through which these righteous souls ascend through these openings, or stargates, into the heavenly realms. But the key is, and here's the thing, these humans who ride this pillar are not humans anymore. They're angels. And if you don't believe humans can transform into angels, You got to think again, because that's the whole premise of this mystic teaching, is that humans can be transformed into angels. That's what the Essenes were all about. Angel theophany, they call it. Angelomorphism, morphing into an angel. It's the foundational premise of all these ancient mystic schools, is that humans can transform into angels and ride this beam of light into the stars. So the ark is, for those reasons, integral to Jewish messianic lore. In fact, to make sure of the identity of the Messiah, when that figure returns, the Jews will demand that he perform the miracle of resurrection before their eyes, bringing someone that they know back from the dead. That's part of the test. So you've got all these figures, on the planet even today. They're saying, oh, this guy's the Messiah, that guy's the Messiah. In Jewish legend, there's actually a checklist of things that this figure will do, a to-do list. Okay, he's got a forerunner who has a to-do list, and that to-do list includes 7 wonders, which are bring Moses and the generation of the desert to life, revive the Ephraimitic Messiah who was slain, and then he will show the 3 holy vessels of the temple, the Ark of the Covenant, the flask of manna, and the cruse of sacred oil, all 3 of which disappeared mysteriously in 586 BC. He'll wave the scepter given him by God. He'll grind the mountains of the Holy Land into powder, and he'll reveal the secret of redemption. Then the Jews will believe that the Elijah that was promised to them is come, and the Messiah introduced by this figure is the true Messiah. So here's the to-do list right here. Go get the ark, get the cruse of sacred oil, get the rod of God, then you'll know what to do with it, right? You're going to assemble this kit and fire up the Stargate. Now we're going to have beings coming and going from the celestial realm. Jesus actually used the rod of Aaron that we're talking about in this checklist to perform the miracle of resurrection, raising Lazarus from the dead. Most Christians don't know that in the earliest Christian art that portrayed this event, up until the 3rd century, before the church councils had their way with the New Testament and the story of Jesus and created an imposter Jesus, a substitute Jesus, he was known as a magician who recovered this magnificent magic wand and used it to perform all his miracles. Then after the church councils, they take that wand out of his hand and just show him waving his hand when he's performing the miracles. But clearly, here raising Lazarus, as we're keying on, he had this staff or scepter that was put in the Ark of the Covenant kit of tools. As I reveal in my book, The Judgment Day Device, Jesus didn't seek the Ark of the Covenant and all the other tools. His brother James went and got it for him. His brother James was part of a lineage that referred to themselves as the Rainmakers, who were charged with assembling and disassembling this kit for about 1,500 to 2,000 years before the time of Jesus. This substance called manna was also manifested by Moses. Jesus also manifested this divine food. That's the bread and wine that was used at the Last Supper. It's this mystic manna. In Exodus, the Israelites had run out of food while crossing the desert to Canaan, and the Shekinah manifests food for them. It covered their camp with quail to provide meat in the evening and coated the bare ground with dew that turned to edible granules called manna. And this is like some kind of an alchemical substance. According to the Egyptians, who also were familiar with it, it fed their light body, it promoted longevity, increased their consciousness, their intelligence, the whole works. So this is some really powerful star food that we're talking about. In Robert Monroe's book on the out-of-body experience called Far Journeys, he calls it loosh, which is defined as metaphysical energy that encompasses everything from the crudest etheric energy produced by plants to the most refined astral energy produced via human love and suffering. So this is some powerful, powerful star food that we're talking about. And just imagine if the heavens open through this device and all of a sudden you've got this deluge of this powerful celestial substance pouring upon the planet. It conceivably could change everything. So we have the rod present in the story of Jesus. We have the manna or star food present in the story of Jesus. And here's Mary Magdalene with the cruse of the sacred oil that's also kept in the Ark of the Covenant. Now, what did that sacred oil do? Well, according to the story of Enoch, when he was taken on his ascension into the heavens by the archangel Michael produced this cruse of sacred oil. And he rubbed this oil on Enoch's body, and he dissolved into light, radiating rainbow-colored light, so that he was indistinguishable from all the holy beings in heaven. Wow. Is it possible that Mary Magdalene actually possessed that very same oil? And is that how Jesus manifested his resurrection body, light body, glory body, bliss body, body of light, power garment, garment of light, beaming garment? There's lots of different names for it. But it's quite possible, given the fact that the Marys are shown holding that cruse of sacred anointing oil, that was involved in the resurrection of Christ when he manifested his light body. And what exactly is that box anyway? This pillar of light and this pillar of light are describing the exact same thing. And it's possible that in fact Jesus did utilize the Ark of the Covenant secretly. And this is part of what was omitted from the original Christian teaching when the church councils took effect. We can't prove that, but adding up all of the other tools that he is known to have used, it's quite possible that the Ark of the Covenant was one of those tools as well. As I mentioned earlier, often overlooked is the fact that the Ark of the Covenant, that the earthly Ark of the Covenant rather, is a copy of the heavenly original. The original is located in the throne of Christ, according to John the Revelator, who said he saw it. The heavens opened for John the Revelator in the book of Revelation, and he's peering into the throne of Christ, and what does he describe? Oh, there's the Ark of the Covenant. Well, yeah, because there's one on earth and one in the heavenly realms. So then God's temple in heaven was opened, and within his temple was seen the Ark of his covenant, and there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and an awesome hailstorm, according to John. So here's an eyewitness account, and here's John the Revelator peering over the rainbow bridge here into the heavenly throne of Christ, which is always shown as a rainbow ring, just like the Shekinah ring on the Ark of the Covenant. And he looks into this realm and he sees the Ark of the Covenant. So it's possible that if John is peering into the heavens and he sees the heavenly Ark, he might even in fact have been using the earthly Ark as one way of opening a hole in heaven in order to see the throne of Christ. But for our purposes right now, we've established that there are two Arks of the Covenant, one earthly and one heavenly. And this is a tip to follow the adage, as above, so below, as within, so without, the Hermetic law. And here we're looking at David playing his harp as the Israelite priests carry the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. Music, dancing, joy, love, very important aspects of the Ark of the Covenant in usage. Very different from what we see typically represented in modern representations of the Ark of the Covenant in use. Let's talk about these seraphim beings that guard the Ark of the Covenant and may even have brought it to earth originally. Merkabah, the Jewish mysticism, the throne literature, describes the seraphim beings who dwell at the heavenly throne room in the celestial Holy of Holies, in the celestial SION. They're described as six-winged beings. They are beings of pure light and pure love. And during the Renaissance, they actually developed this belief that the seraphim are actually transformed humans. The book of Hebrews says that the throne of Christ is inhabited by angels gathered in joyful assembly and just humans made perfect, or humans who have completed their earthly cycle of evolution and now dwell at the throne, and they are referred to as seraphim. Humanoid angels, beings of pure light and pure love. They seem to have amazing abilities. They can be anywhere in the universe in virtually an instant. They're given immense healing capabilities and other attributes that make them worthy of a whole study. We don't have time to go deeply as we'd like to into the seraphim tonight, but they're worth your following the path of the seraphim. And again, because they're beings of pure light and pure love, it takes us back to that statement that if you're looking at the Ark as a box, you're looking with your eyes. But if you see the Ark as the throne of God or the throne of Christ, you're looking with the eyes of the heart, and you're looking at it through the eyes of the seraphim, beings of pure light and pure love. So this is why when you see Christ in majesty, as this is depiction here is portrayed, or Christ in glory, and by the way, the word glory simply means to glow rays, right? You hear those preachers on Sunday morning talking about the glow ray of God. And I wonder if they even know the definition of the word glory, because it simply means to glow rays, usually rainbow-colored rays. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the rainbow light beings and how they are the glorious ones. But here we're looking at Christ in glory or Christ in majesty. We've got a box down here, which you might raise an eyebrow and think, sort of looks like the Ark of the Covenant. And then up above the box, we've got Christ on his arcing throne. He's in his almond-shaped gateway, a mandorla, which means gate of light. So he's in his gate of light, and we have the two seraphim on either side of him. So these are the beings of pure light and pure love that are the guardians of Christ, the heralds of Christ, the assistants of Christ, if you will. And here he is manifesting through this open portal or gateway in glory. The seraphim, by the way, you know them because their bodies are covered with eyes. They're all-seeing beings. So let's shift gears just for a second here, and let's talk about Solomon's Stargate, the place where the Ark of the Covenant was taken. I call it Solomon's Stargate. Most people call it Solomon's Temple. This is a 16th century diagram here of Solomon's Temple at the time of Jesus. We don't know exactly what Solomon's Temple looked like at that time, but we go through the biblical descriptions and other descriptions such as Josephus, the historian, and others, and we try to get a conception of what it looked like. And it's very important because there are people right now that are trying to rebuild Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem as part of this fulfillment of end-time prophecy. But I particularly chose this image here because of the blueprint that you see up here in the left-hand corner. Not only did God download Bezalel with a blueprint or a pattern for the creation of his throne, but he also beamed to David, who made or built Solomon's temple, King David. He beamed to him a blueprint for the temple in which the Ark of the Covenant would be permanently housed. The Temple of Solomon, named after David's son Solomon, who completed the construction of the temple. So not both the device and the temple for housing it were divinely revealed blueprints. The ancients viewed the site of Solomon's temple as an intersection between dimensions, between man and God. It was situated at the center of the world. It was a portal or a stargate where God communicated with humankind. This is why Mount Moriah, which is the present-day site of the Dome of the Rock, is the hot spot on the planet. The most contested single dot of real estate on planet Earth is the site exactly where the Ark of the Covenant once sat in Jerusalem. And it's because it was viewed as an interdimensional portal. Control that portal, you control access to God, theoretically. The Babylonian Talmud states that the world is like a human eyeball. The white of the eye is the ocean surrounding the world. The iris is the continent. The pupil is Jerusalem. And the image in the pupil is the Holy Temple, Solomon's Temple. So that's putting it right in your eye, I hope. Flavius Josephus, the historian, described Jerusalem as the head of the body. And this is why the temple is located there, because actually using that adage, as above, so below, as within, so without, the temple is ultimately within us. It's between our temples. And God is in our eye and in our heart. So we have to visualize this as occurring in our bodies as well as out here in the real world. And it was here at this very powerful dot of real estate that the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, the throne of God, resided in the holy place of the temple. After the Ark was removed, the foundation stone of the temple remained. It's called the Eben Shetiyah, which is a combination of two Hebrew words, the Eben, or rock, of Shetiyah, meaning foundation or weaving. It literally means the rock from which the world was woven. And this is rather remarkable because the meaning of Shetiyah, of weaving or warping, fits the metaphysical sense of the location as warping space-time as a stargate does. So we're talking about warping space-time at this interdimensional portal, And this dot of real estate, this sacred rock where the Ark of the Covenant once sat, is the key place where that once happened in the ancient world. This is the interior of the Dome of the Rock, where in the ancient world all kinds of crazy and wacky mystical things once happened. It's presently controlled by Muslims, but at one time it was the site of Solomon's temple. Jesus worshipped at this place. This is where he also threw the money changers out of the temple. This is where he and Mary Magdalene spent their time. And they knew, they had to have known that this place was actually a Stargate or a portal location. And in fact, today the interior of the Dome of the Rock features imagery that reinforces the idea that it marks some kind of a gateway. Here we are looking up into the dome, the interior of the Dome of the Rock. It's got these warping or weaving energy patterns. And as we go into the detail here, it's as if we're looking through some kind of a portal, or maybe even we've got this Stargate imagery here all around it. And you can clearly see that we're talking about this dot of real estate is marking some kind of a portal. The Ark of the Covenant remained at this location until 600 BC when Nebuchadnezzar stormed Jerusalem in search of the Ark of the Covenant, maybe taking it back to Babylon with him. He certainly took the Jews captive with him. This is the famous Babylonian captivity, during which time Ezekiel, Daniel, other prophets were taken to Babylon. This is when the Old Testament is formulated. And it's during this Babylonian captivity that the Jews began to prophesy about a Messiah who would reclaim the Ark and return the Jews to SION, to Jerusalem. Some believe that he would soon appear, but according to Jewish legend, the Messiah will reveal the Ark and reveal the secret of redemption or resurrection. Now, it's quite possible that Nebuchadnezzar was successful in stealing the Ark of the Covenant and coercing the Jewish mystics from the temple into firing up this powerful device. There's a story about what happens when Nebuchadnezzar got back to Babylon. He had created what's called the golden image of the beast, and he couldn't make this thing work. But he knew the wise men from the Temple of Solomon could make it work. So he made a bet with them that if they could open up what was called the fiery furnace and enter into it and come back out, that he would convert to their religion. So what happens in the story is that 3 wise men from the Temple of Solomon, who were part of the Jews that were taken captive in Jerusalem, put on what are described in the story as their coat, their hat, and their other garments. They enter into this fiery furnace, and this is in the book of Daniel, by the way, and they come back out. And when they come back out, Nebuchadnezzar and his men are stunned, because not only are these guys alive and in pristine condition, they're not alone. The book of Daniel says the Son of God was with them. And in the Bible commentaries, they clearly say that the Son of God who came back through that fiery furnace, that Stargate, which is what that was clearly, was an early prefiguration of Jesus. It's the first appearance of Jesus. So they're telling us that Jesus is a Stargate traveling time traveler. And the Ark of the Covenant had to have been involved because that was the purpose of that device. And that's not the only time Jesus comes and goes through portals or gateways. I discuss that in great detail in my book, The Secret of SION. But let's look into now the Holy of Holies of Solomon's Temple where the Ark was housed, because this is where we really get the nuts and bolts of how this thing actually operated and what they did with it. The Temple of Solomon was divided into 2 areas. The outer part of the temple was called the Holy Place. A short staircase or ramp, which is what we see here, led from the holy place to a slightly elevated special inner room to house the Ark of the Covenant, which was called the Most Holy Place, or the Holy of Holies, which was a cube-shaped room whose walls were covered with gold. Off limits to the average person. Only the high priest could enter this golden cube-shaped room, and only on the Day of Atonement, once a year. A veil separated the holy place from the most holy place. Now, we have to look at this a little more closely in the distinction here between Holy of Holies and Most Holy Place, because the word holy means that someone or something has been made holy, whereas most holy means that someone or something can actively impart holiness. What they're telling us is that the Ark of the Covenant was a most holy device. If you could get near this, you're transformed into one of the holy ones, an angel. All you got to do is get close to this device, and it transforms you into a holy being on contact. The state beyond the veil imparted holiness to all who entered. It made them holy ones, that is, saints or angels. The Holy of Holies, as I said, was the private chamber of the high priest, off limits to the average person, where secret things were taught. At the dedication of the Temple of Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant was placed in this most holy place. And when the priest emerged from the most holy place after placing the Ark there, the temple was filled with a cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. And it's clear to us that this cloud of glory is some sort of divine rainbow-colored energy field that was contained within this golden cube-shaped room. So here's the detail of the room where we're out here in the holy place, go up the short ramp here into the most holy place where we see the Ark of the Covenant and other tools or implements. This again is why the Romans sought to destroy the Temple of Solomon at the time of Jesus. This is why Charlemagne sought the Ark of the Covenant, why Adolf Hitler, why Constantine, while virtually every dictator that's ever come on the planet, including most recently Saddam Hussein and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, have sought this device, because they must know at least what we know about it, probably a lot more. When the high priest entered the Holy of Holies, he put on special clothing that was made of the same material as the veil separating the holy place from the most holy place. This veil symbolized the veil of matter, and when the priest passed through the veil, he was entering heaven. This is where I get the idea that Solomon's temple was a Stargate, because we're talking about these guys putting on special clothing, just like those three wise men a moment ago, when they cross through this veil, leave earth, and enter the heavenly realms. This is John the Baptist's father right here, who was one of those high priests. He's actually wearing this special clothing, including the breastplate of righteousness and other clothing. This clothing is made of the same substance as that veil that separated the holy place from the most holy place. And here's this angel who has now come to John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, and told him that his aging wife is about to give birth to the forerunner of the Messiah. So they must be in the heavenly realm, in this golden cube-shaped room, where this angel is manifested and is telling John the Baptist's father about this miracle that's about to take place with the birth of his son. Central to my thesis is the work of Dr. Margaret Barker. She's a Cambridge University scholar from England. She proposed that the veil was viewed as a boundary between heaven and earth, the visible and the invisible realm, between time and eternity. The veil represented matter, which veils the presence of God from human eyes, but not from the eyes of the heart, remember. Parting this veil took one beyond the material world. Philo told us that this veil separated the changeable world from the unchangeable world, and that those who crossed between the veil into the heavenly realms were mediators who were clad in these special garments, and they walked between worlds in order to bring blessings and the presence of God to their people. The idea is that those special figures who had the opportunity to cross over this veil entered the heavenly realms alive, then came back through the veil, and then could walk around Jerusalem like we'd walk through the grocery store, just dispensing this unbelievable cosmic divine energy. Would you like to do that? Can you just imagine walking into the grocery store and a train, as they described it, of this beautiful divine energy would just follow you everywhere you go? How would that feel? What would that look like? You know, that's what we're talking about here, this very special place having that kind of capability. It was believed that those who entered the Holy of Holies entered heaven alive, and they were transformed upon entering this chamber. As Barker observes, when the high priest entered the Holy of Holies, he was not a man. There shall be no man in the Holy of Holies. It's off limits to humans. Only angels can enter into this realm. When the high priest enters the Holy of Holies, he shall not be a man, showing that the high priest was more than human, because he had interacted with this device that transforms humans into angels. And that's what, in fact, the whole purpose of this golden cube-shaped room. In Barker's view, Solomon's temple was a place where the pilgrim could have received an anointing with the holy oil and that would prepare him to come face to face with the presence of God. The Essenes knew all about this. This is why they took that oil and put it on the eyelids of their initiates, so that they could see the face of God. Traditional Christianity says, who the bleep are you to think you can see the face of God? You lowly piece of garbage, you sinner you. Don't even think about this. That's traditional Christianity's perspective about this. These guys are saying, no. The Essenes are saying, wait a minute. There's a whole process here, technology that average persons can utilize. It can have this anointing, can feel this divine light, can be transformed themselves. We know what happened to the Essenes. Wiped out. We know what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. Oh, it's just a simple golden box. We'll never find the Ark of the Covenant. Don't even pay attention to the Ark of the Covenant. It's just a worthless piece of ancient Jewish relic. No point seeking it. That's an over-dramatization, but it's very close to the traditional Christian perspective about this. Because you can't have a planet full of Christ-like beings running around. They're unmanageable and they don't pay taxes. And that's what we're talking about here, is a technology, a spiritual technology that transforms a man into an angel. It's called theosis, even while in the mortal body. And if you can imagine the Israelites who lined up for this experience, I think people would line up for it today, just like they did back then. The transformed humans passed beyond the temple veil from earth into heaven, from immortality to the resurrected state. Then they could phase back and forth at will. They could return at will. They could come back and forth between the veil if they chose to. This symbolism, by the way, was adopted by Christianity with Jesus as the high priest of the order of Melchizedek, who passed through the veil and returned. Melchizedek was the name of the priest who guarded the Ark of the Covenant and walked between the worlds. We have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens. We have a great high priest who has passed through the Stargate, in other words. Because, again, we don't talk like that. We don't talk about openings in heaven or passing through the heavens. We talk about portals and stargates. The inner sanctuary behind the curtain where Jesus, who went before us, has entered on our behalf. Jesus is like, suit me up. Rub the anointing all on my eyes. Put me in the get up. I'm going through the veil. Hell yeah. He parts the veil, enters heaven alive, is transformed into an angel, and comes back through the veil, and he's like, follow me. Christianity's like, oh no. We're not going to let average individuals do this. We're going to control this whole scenario. We're going to put our Jesus in there, not the Melchizedek priest who wants to show everybody how to do this. And we're going to put in a different version of the story, and that's where the cover-up comes in. For Christ did not enter a man-made sanctuary that was only a copy of the true one. He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence, now to appear for us in God's presence. He was showing us exactly how to do it. In fact, when this painting here by William Holman Hunt was displayed in Victorian England, it was the most controversial thing that happened in 1871. Maybe for 10 or 20 years before 1871 too, because they're like, golly, man, I've never seen Jesus looking like some kind of druid high priest. He was actually a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The book of Hebrews states that explicitly. And as the priest of Melchizedek, the order of Melchizedek, he was the one responsible for making the whole Ark of the Covenant device work. He and his brother James, along with Mary Magdalene, were the ones that did it. And so here he is, faithfully portrayed in his glowing garment with his breastplate of righteousness on and his glowing crown chakra, indicating that he is a transformed being. He has assembled this Judgment Day device and shown us how to make it work. And all of this was omitted from the traditional Christian story. But as the Melchizedek high priest went beyond the veil and entered the Holy of Holies, he entered heaven. And when he passed back through the veil, he came down from heaven. Dr. Barker tells how these priests became angels and lights among the living. And I believe that this transformation into a divine being was literal, as opposed to the way scholars like Dr. Barker view it, which is merely metaphorical. Jesus really didn't turn into a light being. and go through a portal or gateway and enter heaven and then come back and morph into flesh again. He really didn't do that, is their take. That's just metaphor. My take is, no, he really did that. Because that's exactly what these tools and implements are designed to do. But again, the religious and political authorities on this planet can't have this kind of ascension device in the public domain. You can't have Apple suddenly making a device like this, as much as I'm sure they would like to, because it completely changes everything. The whole basis for civilization changes. You want to hang out here if you think you can turn into an angel? Maybe, but you're not going to be doing the things you're presently doing. You're going to be doing everything you can to get as close as you can to this light, because just a little particle of it, or even a little tiny wave of it, turns you into a Christ-like being, an angel on contact. That's the promise of this here. And this is in perfect alignment here, this idea that he literally did this with my theory that the Ark of the Covenant was an ascension device. And recovering it is what will transform our civilization. Just before the birth of Jesus, King Herod refurbished the second temple, the Temple of Solomon. In Christian legend, a pregnant Mary was part of a team of weavers. His mother was a part of a team of weavers who wove the temple's veil. Whoa! That veil, we're said, was covered with stars because it represented the heavenly realm. It was made of some other unearthly substance. And Jesus' mother weaved that substance. And you get the impression in Sunday school that she's some illiterate peasant girl, suddenly gets pregnant by God. No, we're talking about some world-class initiates here. Galaxy-class initiates, actually. We're talking highly trained, highly tuned metaphysical specialists who knew about these ethereal substances and could weave a body of light capable of going through these veils and crossing through stargates. Jesus mysteriously parted this veil during the crucifixion. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the heavens opened. We're describing here the opening of a stargate or a portal. They're putting this whole kit together, and they're the master initiates who knew how to make this whole thing go. And here we're seeing the curtain or veil separating the holy place from the holy place being torn open. So we have images of Christ rising from the tomb that encode the secret of redemption and the belief that the human body can be changed into light. This is the resurrection. What is that box that Jesus is standing on top of but the Ark of the Covenant? He's mastered this technology. He's standing on top of it. That's the tomb that he spent 3 days in. He's utilizing the Ark technology for what it's supposed to do, which is transform us into radiant light beings. So whenever I see the tomb of Christ portrayed as a simple box, Ark of the Covenant. And because I know the Ark of the Covenant is an ascension device. It's a Stargate device that turns a human into a light being, which is what we see portrayed as here. A radiant light being. He's in his glory body, his radiant body, his light body. Most Christians don't realize that Christ is shown ascending on this ark throne. I mean, was mind-blowing to me. Because again, for years I'm going down this whole path of all these authors that say the ark is a simple golden box made by Moses at the base of Mount Sinai to house the Ten Commandments, It's like, and it never comes. And then I started looking into it and I realized, wait a minute, there's this whole artwork that shows Christ not only utilizing the Ark of the Covenant, but he also ascends into the heavens on the Ark of the Covenant Stargate device. The throne that he ascends on is his docking station. So let's go back to this image here. It's from the 12th century, pretty standard image of the Ark of the Covenant, golden box. Got the ark or bow on it, the two angels on either side. That's the essential Ark of the Covenant or traditional Ark of the Covenant symbolism right there. So now let's get rid of that and let's put this in here. Oh, right, sorry. That's two Egyptian figures, winged serpents on either side of Nefertim. Didn't want to look at that one. I actually wanted to look at this one here. The ascension of Christ. He's sitting on a throne with his feet on the footstool. Oh, remember earlier, the Ark of the Covenant is God's throne, which serves as his footstool. The tip-off is that the two winged angels on either side with their wingtips touching complete the Ark symbolism. So we go back to go forward. There's no doubt that Christ is shown ascending on the same throne that Yahweh descended on. This is the Ark of the Covenant. Christ is ascending to his celestial throne on the Ark of the Covenant. The same thing here. This is 6th century, this previous one, by the way, this is 6th century France. Then we come forward here, this is 6th century Egypt. The Coptic Christians or Egyptian Christians knew all about Jesus' time in Egypt and how he studied in the temples of Egypt, learning the secret of Osiris, of rebirth, renewal, and resurrection. So they show these images of Christ ascending. He's sitting on his throne with his feet on the footstool, equals the Ark of the Covenant. He's in a portal or a gateway, because that's what the concentric rings symbolize, and he's got these rotating energy fields around him. Those symbolize what are called the Merkaba fields, or the throne chariot fields. What I'm proposing to you is that when Christ is on his ark throne, we're seeing him face on. But it's exactly this, telling the exact same story as the ancient Egyptian depiction of the figure on the feathered throne on the Ark of the Millions of Years. What Christianity did is they got rid of the ship. Well, not really, because actually this is a wormhole from the side. Christ is ascending on the wormhole from the face on. We're in the wormhole with him as he's ascending into the heavens. Profile view versus face-on view, it's the same story. Both images tell the same story. A celestial being, a figure who was just recently flesh and blood, is now traveling in the stars as a celestial or star being or light being. The story is exactly the same. In fact, what Christ is riding on, he's in a tube of light. And what we're seeing here is this same tube of light from the face on. He's ascending on the ark throne, the cosmic conduit, which is a stargate or a wormhole. And he's been transformed into a celestial being. 8th century England. Christ is on his throne with his feet on the footstool, equals the Ark of the Covenant. Here's the two angels on either side of him. That's the Ark of the Covenant. And he's in a tube filled with light or stars, with concentric rings, with a gateway around it, a rainbow ring gateway. He's in a stargate or a wormhole as he's ascending into the heavens. This is original Christianity. Well, I don't know what they teach at the Baptist church down the road here, but it's not Christianity. I don't know what they teach at the Presbyterian church down the road, or the Episcopalian, or any of the other denominations of Christianity, the 5s, 10s, 20s, 100s, whatever you want to call it. They're not teaching Christianity. This is Christianity. Original Christianity. I call it Stargate Christianity. Because that's what it was about. It was about assembling these tools or kits of instruments, these cosmic tools given to us by God for this purpose, to show us how to turn into Christ-like beings. That was the whole purpose of the original Christ revelation. That's why they all gathered together. And the artwork shows it. But you know what? They call this kind of artwork heresy. This is blasphemy. You shouldn't be allowed to talk about this kind of artwork because there's no Christ on the cross here. There's no bloody Mel Gibson Jesus shown here. Christ on his throne. This one's from Russia, second half of the 16th century. He's got his feet on the footstool. That's the Ark of the Covenant that he's sitting on, the Ark throne. We know it's the Ark throne because now we're also in Moscow in the Tretyakov Gallery. Dolores, have you ever been there when you're in Moscow?
No, I didn't. I was in the Russian Orthodox Church, but I didn't see that.
Okay, gosh, I'd love to go there with you sometime. It'd be really cool. But anyway, so we have Christ on his throne, on the seat of the Father, with his feet on the footstool, with these Hot Wheels, here. Those are Ezekiel's wheels. That tells us this is the Ark of the Covenant we're looking at. Pardon me?
That is correct. That is, I'm from Russia.
Oh.
It is there, and they do not talk anything of that.
Oh, they don't decode any of the symbols for you. They might not have any clue. You might be right. And she's saying she's from Russia, and she's been there, and they don't talk about any of the symbolism there. She thinks they don't have a clue. Well, we know this is the Ark throne because we've got the two seraphim on either side of the throne. This is the Ark of the Covenant. And the angels have their kiss makeup on today. But they do. This is Russia still, yeah. And then look at the footstool with the ophanum, the winged rings. That means this is a celestial vehicle, the celestial throne. This is his ascension vehicle. It's also the Ark of the Covenant. And because that's what the Ark is. It's an ascension vehicle. It's the Ark throne. So there it is again. And so we now know that what this actually is a 16th century Russian depiction of the mystic Ark of the Covenant, complete with all the tools. So all three of these things are showing the same thing, but this isn't actually correct. This is not the Ark of the Covenant. This is the Ark of the Covenant. This is the Ark of the Covenant, but that's not. That's the sort of the person doesn't really know what the Ark of the Covenant is version of the Ark of the Covenant. So here's Christ ascending. The two angels in white are lifting him up in his bright white garment of light. He's naked because he's completely pure. And then up above, he's in his Ark throne, which is surrounded by these angelic beings in this radiant glory of light. He's in a portal or a gateway. Very much like Elijah ascended in one of these as well. And remember, Elijah later reincarnated as John the Baptist. So he's in his concentric rings, ascending, and he's transmitting his holy garment called his pala or miracle garment to his disciple Elisha. So there's good precedent for other figures ascending, but it's clearly in the story of Jesus where we get the complete story. This is 6th century, one of the earliest illuminations of Christ ascending. It's from the Rabbulu Gospels. It's the one that most ascension images of Christ are based on. He's in his rainbow ring. He's got Ezekiel's wheels here. I call them the Hot Wheels because they're these space-time light vehicles that he's ascending in. And I don't have time to get into it today. I'll just simply mention it here that presently NASA has been funded. It's called the 100-year Starship program. And NASA believes that within 100 years we'll be able to build a warp craft that will enable us to travel from Earth to Alpha Centauri, our nearest star, which would take 75,000 years to get there in a space shuttle. But if we had a warp craft like they have in Star Trek, we could make the journey in 2 weeks. And their designs, and maybe I'll put these in my presentation tomorrow if I can, their designs for their starships look exactly like Ezekiel's wheels. Look exactly like it. They look exactly like the Hot Wheels on Christ's ascension throne. And NASA really believes they're going to build some tin can warp craft to take us out of here. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because those out there don't want us bringing our weapons out into space because we'll weaponize our warp craft. We'll try to militarize space like they did in the movie in the Star Trek series. It's all the militarization of space. The seraphim aren't going to let that happen. They're going to keep us quarantined down here, And it's only when we put in the spiritual drive, the Merkava drive, that we'll be able to create a warp drive that'll get us out of our solar system. That's my opinion anyway. But it's uncanny the way in which NASA's designs are identical to these wheels that we see here in these ascension scenes. Here's another example. This one's from Macedonia, 14th century, Christ ascending on his winged ring. They don't teach you this in Sunday school, but how much more fun would Sunday school have been? It'd been like, look, you're going to put this kit of ascension tools together within your body. You're going to learn to become a Christ-like being, and you're going to fly through the stars on your winged ring, your Merkava vehicle, your ascension throne. Would have been a completely different experience. So here he is. on his winged ring. You see the radiance of the light in here? That's the portal or gateway that he's traveling through. And he comes and goes on this. The Gnostic Gospels make it clear. He says repeatedly, that he's been coming and going through these gateways in the past, future generations, and in my opinion, this is how he's able to do it. And it doesn't in any way diminish the Christ story, and please don't take me wrong like I'm trying to disparage Christianity or anything. I'm just saying that when you look at this and you put it together with what they said he was originally doing, the contemporary picture of Christianity it's not even the same thing at all. It's not even close. This one's Armenian. We've got Mary and John the Baptist on either side of him, who also ascended. They were the two people most important during his earthly mission. We've got beams of light called the Pentecost, the beams of Holy Spirit energy coming from this winged ring that he's on. He's sitting on his throne with his feet on the footstool. That's the Ark of the Covenant, and the two angels are John and Mary. And he's in the portal, in the Stargate, in the wormhole, traveling through it. Mary, Jesus in his celestial throne, his winged throne. And again, there would be some that would look at this art and say, yeah, that's a flying Toyota, it's a flying saucer. It's an organic light vehicle. It's not some hardware spaceship type of a thing. And they frequently will show Christian art and say, oh yeah, that's a UFO in Christian art. Well, those aren't UFOs. We know what those are. They're identified. They're Merkaba thrones. They're organic light vehicles. They're actually the saints and the angels who have transformed themselves into celestial or light beings, and they travel around in these mystic orbs of light. We think of them as UFOs, but that's not a UFO. We know exactly what that is. And here, again, we see the Hot Wheels down here, his mystic winged ring throne. He's traveling as a star being, a celestial being. This one's also Russian. So this is kind of a sampling of this artwork that encodes this ancient Stargate mysticism, the true secrets of the Ark of the Covenant. And all these images, by the way, are in my book, The Judgment Day Device. And I have it available in a PDF format that you can blow up on your computer and really get into them and look at the details. And the thing is this one's English from Winchester from the 11th century. He's on his rainbow throne, feet on the footstool. This looks like those rotating energy fields. Remember that movie Contact, Carl Sagan's vision of the militarization of space and the Stargate and all that? Really, I loved the movie, but I hate the message. And they created that machine that opened the Stargate and had these counter-rotating energy fields. The reason I love the movie but hate the message is because Sagan thought, yeah, we're going to take a nuclear missile into space. Just like in the movie Stargate. Yep, we're going to take a nuclear missile into space. Not a chance. There's just no way, I believe, that these angelic beings would allow something like that to happen. And plus, the Bible clearly says flesh and blood cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Which means when we enter heaven, we're not going with one of these bodies. Something else is going to happen to this body. It's going to be dematerialized into light. Then we can enter the kingdom of heaven. And they forget that. And so NASA and these scientists think, yeah, we're going to build a tin can warp craft to get us out of here. It's not going to happen, in my opinion. But what we see here with the rainbow ark is the tip-off with the Ark of the Covenant, and especially the feet on the footstool. And the thing I love about these images is that, you can just spend hours lost in them. And that's the point. Because the Gnostics had a phrase, the image itself will show you the way. Enter through the image was another of their terms. And their idea was, we'll pass on the text. Because the text can be really, subject to interpretation, and you could have some priest that could tell you the text means this and it really doesn't. But the image, you can be illiterate and look at an image and still get a lot out of it. You can be inspired by it. And that's why the images are so important and so powerful, at least in my work, because I'm an image freak. I try to go find the paintings, go to the museum, go to the temple, go wherever, get the image to bring it back to you, because I believe they're so powerful in what they communicate to us. Every picture is worth 1,000 words, right? At least. And so if we can get just the right 10 pictures, then we can really put the story together. Another example here, we've got the rainbow ring on the outside. That's Christ's throne. It's got a layer cake here. We're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow, this layer caking of the heavenly realms, the hierarchy sort of a thing, because these are zones of vibration or frequency. We're way down here in the earth plane. All the good stuff we want is up here. But there's no bridge, there's no rope, there's no ladder, but there is a wormhole. There is a Stargate that links earth with heaven, and that's what we're looking for here. And as we get up here into the top zone, we see Christ on his throne, radiant explosion of light. He's on his throne, got his feet on the footstool, got his Hot Wheels, got his mother, got his prophet beside him. That's heaven. And his body is covered with stars too. That's the star cloak. That's the veil that separates heaven and earth. And Jesus is saying, follow me. You can do this too. You can put on this star cloak. You can enter this higher region of space-time. And above him is this empty chair, this throne. With angels on both sides. What is that? So both of these are the same. The Merkaba throne, Christ's throne, same thing. The pillar of righteousness is featured in this painting by Hieronymus Bosch. He's one of my favorite painters, Flemish, 1600 AD. The story is told that he's given the lost secrets of the Cathars, who were exterminated by the Catholic Church between 1200 and 1244 because they claimed to possess the true religion of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. So the church sends 30,000 stormtroopers into the Languedoc, sacred southern France, and just wipes out the Cathars. First European genocide. And that was 1200, 1244. 350 years later, Hieronymus Bosch comes along, sticks his head up and says, maybe we can take another shot at revealing the true secrets of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And he creates a series of paintings where he shows St. Jerome praying before a traditional image of the Catholic crucifix here, the dead guy strapped to the dead wood. And then down in the lower left, he shows the Cathar cross of Christ, the column of glory, the pillar of righteousness, which are the terms the Cathars used for this thing, the Christ column. And what we see is a glassy, star-filled tube that's attached to a base. And the purified Cathar soul is rising beyond the stars into a hyperdimensional realm beyond the stars through this glassy cylinder. This glassy cylinder is called the Son of Man, because Jesus had said, I tell you the truth, you shall see heaven open, the Stargate open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man, this tube of light, this pillar of righteousness, this cosmic conduit, which is probably the same as Jacob's ladder. And in the detail here, we can see this purified soul rising through this glassy cylinder. That's the conduit that emanates from the Ark of the Covenant. That's the pillar of light. And the Cathars, at least the Nazis, thought this way. The Nazis thought the Ark of the Covenant was in Montségur in southern France. They sent their mythologist, Otto Rahn, there to go get it. So in my view, the Ark with the pillar emanating from it, and this pillar here attached to this base, that's the same thing. And Hieronymus Bosch is saying the secret of the Cathars was they knew all about this pillar of light, this pillar of love, this cosmic conduit. Then we get Gene Roddenberry coming along. And he invents or reinvents the idea of beaming, dematerializing the body into a pillar of light and beaming it to another location where it can be reassembled. It's exactly what we're talking about here. That's the secret of redemption, as Christianity calls it. That's the secret of resurrection. Dematerializing the body into light, resurrecting it, or piecing it back together in another location in a different form. The Shroud of Turin is evidence of that. Italian energy researchers, not the New Age energy types, but Italian energy researchers, scientists, said in 2011 that the image on the Shroud of Turin was caused by a sudden radiant burst of light coming from the body of the figure wrapped in that shroud. That's the resurrection of Jesus. He beamed through that shroud. And the double entendre, they call the resurrection body of Christ the beaming garment. Because when you put it on, you beam. You radiate light, you glow rays, but then to use it in the Star Trek vernacular, you beam through the cosmos on a beam or pillar of light. Oh, now we got to talk about the Mahdi, the Islamic Messiah. It's generally accepted by Shia Muslims that the Messianic Mahdi, the guided one, that's what his name means, will be the one guided to discover the Ark of the Covenant. He'll be accompanied by his assistant, Jesus. And what I'm giving you here is Islamic end-time prophecy, subscribed to by millions upon millions of the 1.8 billion Muslims on the planet. The Ark of the Covenant will be found by the Islamic Messiah, the Mahdi, in the end times and will be taken to Jerusalem, upon which time Armageddon is unleashed, where it will be a symbol of the Mahdi's dominion or sovereignty. For Muslims, the Ark of the Covenant will be the sign of a great new golden age of peace, plenty, and rapid advance in human civilization ruled by the Mahdi. All other world religions will cease to exist at this point, and Islam will exist as a sole global religion. They call it the Caliphate. This is the goal of both Sunni and Shia Muslims. The distinction is that most of the Muslims in the world, again, the 1.8 billion Muslims, are Sunni. They believe that this will happen in its own God-given time. The Shia, they believe that they can accelerate this program by bringing forward the Mahdi, who will recover and reveal the Ark of the Covenant and place it right back here underneath the Dome of the Rock. Now, one of the individuals that subscribes to this, and by the way, the Dome of the Rock is the place from which Muhammad ascended to the throne of God upon his magic horse, Al-Buraq. This is what Islamic images of Muhammad's ascension looks like. He went through 7 halls or holes in space before he reached the throne of God. Isaiah also ascended through 7 halls or holes in space before he reached the throne of God. So there's lots of ancient stories. Inanna descended into the underworld in the oldest human story through 7 halls or holes in space. So there's this constant idea that there are halls or holes in space, usually 7 of them, that lead from Earth to another celestial location where you find Allah, Yahweh, or other Christ, or other divinities or divine beings. And you don't get there in a warp craft. You get there on your magic horse, Al-Buraq. You get there on your Merkava throne, on your Ark throne, or other such spiritual devices. Now, the thing about this is, and you won't hear about this on Fox News or CNN, they contacted me about 2012 for interviews, and I said, well, I'm really not that interested in talking with you about 2012 because I don't really think anything's ever going to happen with 2012. And I don't want you to make fun of me by saying I'm like some 2012, person that thinks something crazy is going to go on, it's the end of the world or all that. But I've got this other story over here because you keep talking about Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and war with Iran and all of this, and you don't ever go into the reason why Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is trying to provoke Israel to attack Iran. And that is because Ahmadinejad believed, as the president of Iran, that if he could get Israel to attack Iran, it would start Armageddon. And that would accelerate the arrival of the Mahdi, because according to Islamic prophecy, there will be chaos on the earth when the Mahdi arrives. So these people are trying to actually accelerate or stimulate chaos so that then their prophet, the Mahdi, can return. And according to the Quran, Muhammad, their prophet, said to them, the sign of his kingship is that the ark will come to you, containing serenity from your Lord and certain relics left by the families of Moses and Aaron. It will be borne by angels. There is a sign for you in that if you believe. So according to the Quran and the research I've done as well, the Ark of the Covenant is not on earth. It's somewhere else. It's been taken off the planet, and this teaching will be brought back to earth by angels who will be accompanied, according to Islam, by their Messiah, the Mahdi. And Mahmoud Ahmadinejad actually believes that he was born to be the great jihadist that would prepare the way for the arrival of this figure. But as I said, in order for the Mahdi to return, the belief is that there must be a great cataclysmic event. And this is what Iran has been trying to trigger for the past 5 years. Some believe Iran's nuclear weapons program is designed to facilitate this cataclysmic event and hasten the return of the Mahdi. But my profile of Ahmadinejad, I profiled Saddam Hussein before we invaded Iraq, and I said, look guys, he's all about ancient technology. And later, my profile of him was affirmed by military intelligence, just like my profile of Ahmadinejad has been recently affirmed by military intelligence as well. People that come to my presentations and said, you're spot on about Saddam. There was no doubt that he did believe he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, who we talked about earlier, sought the Ark of the Covenant and opened the fiery furnace. He believed that. And he believed that he was going to reveal to the world all this ancient Sumerian high technology brought here by the Anunnaki. And that's why we went into Iraq. And I had called that 6 months before Bush and Cheney were elected. I said, if those guys are elected, they're going after Saddam because they're Bible thumpers. And they read the book of Revelation like it's a cookbook. Just like Ahmadinejad reads the Quran like it's a cookbook. We got to create world chaos, slaughter millions of people in order for our Messiah to return. Bush and Cheney believe the exact same thing. We got to go into Babylon and destroy Babylon because the Bible says in order for the Lord to return, Babylon has to be rebuilt so it can be destroyed so it can be rebuilt again. And so check, first Iraqi war. We're going in. We're going to take down Saddam, Papa Bush. Then Baby Bush comes in a few years later. Got to go finish the job. Mission accomplished. Well, what was the mission? To destroy Iraq? Yeah, that was part of the mission. But the real mission was to go get Nebuchadnezzar equals Saddam Hussein's Stargate stuff. Because that's what he was accumulating in that museum. He wanted to create a Disneyland for all of this, where people all over the world would come to Babylon, the rebuilt Babylon, to learn the true secrets of humanity. The real weapons of mass destruction that Saddam had was knowledge of human origins and space beings that came here and had a hand in our creation and brought all this technology we're describing here. He rolls that out, it's lights out for Judeo-Christian civilization, which is based on the Bible. He wanted to rebuild the Tower of Babel, which was a ladder, tower, or stairway to heaven. Now, I'm not saying Saddam was a good guy. I'm just telling you the profile I developed of him before we even thought about going into Iraq publicly. They had designs on that guy for a long time because they knew exactly what he was accumulating there. If I knew it, just by following him in the art newspaper since the early 1990s when those UN weapons inspectors were going in there and coming out with all these ancient Iraqi artifacts that they were selling on the black market, and the art newspapers were all on fire about it, saying, look, they're destroying not only the true history of humanity here by selling all this stuff into private collections, but they're also, it's illegal what they're doing. And they were saying, stop it. So I start following Saddam's story through the art people who were saying, look, we got to give all this stuff back to the Iraqi people. And I developed this picture that Saddam is this, believes he's this reincarnated biblical figure trying to assemble all this stuff. Ahmadinejad's the same way. He's out of office now, but the day after he left office, he says, my Mahdi project, I'm still working on that. Because I'm the guy that's going to herald the appearance of this Islamic Messiah. We're going to go get the Ark of the Covenant and reveal it to the world. So, off of Ahmadinejad here for a minute, and let's talk about again, the reason why I wrote the Judgment Day device is because if Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is seeking the Ark of the Covenant, and at the time he was doing it, he was the president of Iran, and he had all the resources of the Iranian government at his disposal, he must know, or probably knows more than what I know about it. And what I know is essentially what I've told you, that the Ark of the Covenant is not some stupid golden box. It's way more than that. And so if I know it, he's got to know it. And so then the question is, well, if Ahmadinejad's about to introduce the Islamic Messiah, and by the way, the Iranian newspapers were filled with stories in the past 2 years about Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and the Ayatollah Khomeini, the spiritual leader of Iran, who both have stated publicly to the Iranian people, these are the end times, prepare. And both Khamenei and Ahmadinejad stated publicly, even Ahmadinejad, September 26, 2012 at the UN, he stands before the world and says, I am in direct communication with the Islamic Messiah, the Mahdi, and his return is imminent. You know, that's a serious thing to stand before the world at the UN and say that you represent this Messiah and all of the stuff that goes with it, the appearance of this ancient Jewish relic. It's not even a Jewish relic, really, but the Jews claim the Ark of the Covenant as their own. And he's sitting there saying, this is our present reality, and he is going to bring this to the world. That's powerful, powerful stuff. And the spiritual leader of Iran is saying, I'm in communication with him too. Now, the Ayatollah is 82 years old, and he has stated that the Mahdi told him that he will appear during his lifetime, which means there's a ticking clock. You know, sometime in the next few years, we could see them try to engineer the appearance of this figure in the Ark of the Covenant. And my thing, once again, is, well, if Ahmadinejad stands there with some, I mean, the Mahdi, when he was last seen, he was put in stasis as a young child, an 11-year-old boy. So presumably Ahmadinejad's going to come on the world stage with an 11-year-old and the Ark of the Covenant and say, we're here, right? And if he stands there with a made in China golden box, we know it's a bunch of BS. Because we know the Ark of the Covenant is not a golden box. We know the Ark of the Covenant is this wacky celestial space-time Stargate device, right? Well, what is it, though? What are we actually talking about? Well, let's go back and pick up a story from the Knights Templar here. In 1118, 9 French Knights Templar went to Palestine. They went to the site of Solomon's Temple, went to the Christian king of Jerusalem and said, you know, we're here to protect pilgrims coming into Jerusalem. And he allowed them to set up shop at the site of the old Temple of Solomon, where the Ark of the Covenant once stood. And because of the house they occupied on the site of Solomon's Temple, they were called the Knights of the Temple, or the Templars. They spent 11 years excavating underneath the present-day site of the Dome of the Rock, where the Ark once sat. And they discovered something of immense importance during their excavations there. And they returned to France with part of their findings, if not their complete findings. And as I traced their story, I found the Templars returning to a friend of their founder was named Bernard de Clairvaux. And they went to a friend of his whose name is Abbot Sujet at a place called Saint Denis, right outside Paris. It's the first Gothic cathedral. And we know that once the Templars discovered the Ark of the Covenant, which is what they discovered, the secrets of the Ark of the Covenant. Here we are in a painting here of the chapter order of the Templars from 1147 with the Ark clearly sitting there, at least part of it. And what we know is that they came back to Paris and they deposited part of their secrets with Abbot Sujet at Saint Denis. And then they inaugurated the cathedral age, building 80 to 100 of these massive cathedrals throughout Europe, based on geometry and knowledge and other things that they discovered underneath Solomon's Temple. And part of what they discovered, I believe, was evidence that the Ark is in fact some kind of a device connected with Christ. In fact, a portal or a Stargate device. And in fact, this is the Crusaders before Jerusalem. I use this as the cover of the Judgment Day device. Here's our men in white, the Essene priests in this instance here, who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and here's Christ as a light being right above. How often do you see Christ and the Ark of the Covenant together in a painting? Not very. Not very. How often do you see Christ presented as a light being with the Ark of the Covenant? Not very. But here, Wilhelm von Kaulbach has done an amazing job showing the Essene priest. There's the Temple of Solomon, or rather the Dome of the Rock right there. And we see Christ up above as a celestial or a light being, an ethereal being, because they know the Ark of the Covenant is his throne. It's his vehicle that creates this pillar or this conduit. And that is the cross of Christ. And there's the pun. Christ uses this pillar or conduit to cross through dimensions. to go from the higher, from the higher dimensional realms into the lower vibrational realm of Earth. That's what the Ark of the Covenant is used for. It's a crossing device, a Stargate crossing device. So von Kaulbach must have been deeply steeped in the understanding of what the Templars were about and what they had discovered to create that painting. As I said, they come back here to Saint Denis. Here's a painting of the creation of that first Gothic cathedral outside of Paris. It's kind of the prototype out of which then they sprung out all of these amazing cathedrals, which themselves are kind of like portals in and of themselves. They're absolutely amazing constructions. And what Suje does is something very interesting. He personally designs this window medallion that's placed up here in one of the windows of the basilica. It's this window up here, and here's a line drawing of that window, personally designed by Suje. And in his own words, Suje tells us that this is the Ark of the Covenant. There's the rod of enlightenment, there's the 2 tablets of the 10 commandments, there's the box right there, and here's the pillar or cross attached to it. Now, within a couple hundred miles of here, there must be, 1,000 Christian churches, right? And every one of them shows the cross of Christ attached to the Ark of the Covenant. No, they don't. There are no Christian churches anywhere in America that show the cross anywhere near the Ark of the Covenant, because that's a Jewish relic. And they don't go together. So what's Suje doing here? Why does he put the cross on the Ark of the Covenant? Well, there's a very good reason why. I have to take a time out?
No.
Oh.
Time's up.
Oh, he told me I had 10 minutes.
Well, maybe a minute, okay.
Okay, how about a minute? All right, we're just getting to the punchline here. And this clock says it's 9:27. I'm sorry. I'll quit if you all want. Okay. I don't have my phone. I've lost my phone. Oh, well, apologize. Yeah, would you like me to stop and I'll pick it up tomorrow or whatever you want me to do?
Well, wind this one up.
I'll wind it up. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going by the clock here. It says 9:27. I thought we were going till 9:30. So here's the cross attached to the Ark of the Covenant. Now, and there it is, the actual window right there. Now, what are we actually looking at here? Why is that there? Well, it's because of this right here. We have 2 angels on either side of a box with a cross attached to it and a garment filled with stars attached as well. This right here is called the adamastia. It's a Greek word. It means the throne of the second coming. That's Christ right there, according to the earliest Christians. Christ was not a 5'10" bearded guy that weighed about 165 pounds, at least according to the image on the Shroud of Turin. The earliest Christians said that's Christ. And what Christ is, according to the Christians, they refer to it as the throne of the second coming, or the throne of Christ. It's a cross, which is an instrument of transmutation. It's a spear, a sponge, a scroll, a robe of light, and a jar. These are all the tools or implements of Christ that are assembled together, and they sit on a box or platform that is the Ark of the Covenant. That is not the Ark of the Covenant. This is, right here. This, when you see people wearing a crucifix, they think that's the cross of Christ. That's not the cross of Christ. This is, right here. All of these tools or implements are the complete Ark of the Covenant. All of those tools or implements are the complete cross of Christ. And when they're assembled, they form this pillar or cross through which these illuminated beings would cross into other dimensions. And in my book, we're obviously out of time tonight, but in my book, The Judgment Day Device, you can learn all about this robe of light that is placed there, which is symbolic of the light body, and all about the tools or implements that are shown as the true throne or cross of Christ. And the reason why in all of this artwork he is shown, why Jesus is shown so close to it, is because it's his. It's his device that will be assembled at the quote-unquote Judgment Day, and this is why I call it the Judgment Day device. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here again today. So, our presentation today is called The Path of Souls. And before I get into the presentation, I just wanted to invite you all to visit my website, williamhenry.net. Several of you have asked about how to sign up for newsletters, that sort of thing. So my website, williamhenry.net, go there. There's information about newsletter, tours, books, events, all that sort of thing. So now, the Path of Souls is about how we actually morph in the afterlife. It's about living an awake life, having an awake death and awake rebirth. And we're going to talk about these concepts as we go. But first, a lot of this talk about the afterlife and near-death experiences is relatively new. And by that I mean late 60s, early 1970s. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came along and asked, what happens as we die? And started a really phenomena concerning this teaching. Then Dr. Raymond Moody came along and wrote his best-selling books about near-death experiences, and he asked, what happens to us when we die? Sherwin Newland came along and asked, how do we die from a physiological perspective? And then Suki Miller asked, what happens to us after we die? Our presentation today is going to be more based on the question of what's out there. Where do we go next? How do we get there? And what do I need to know now or be doing now in order to get there? Diverse cultures throughout time and geography have proposed very detailed answers to these questions. In fact, they have mapped the afterlife region. They have left us with maps of the geography of this region, the inhabitants of these regions, and how we can safely, in fact, navigate these regions. In fact, shamans and gods have traveled these interdimensional afterlife realms just like New Yorkers ride the subway or Londoners ride the tube. It's that well known and that well mapped out, and that's in part what we're going to be looking at this afternoon. For example, we'll be looking at some of the Christian images of the maps of the afterlife. We'll be looking at the Gnostic versions of the afterlife. We'll be looking at some of the Native American concepts. We'll be exploring ancient Egyptian concepts. We'll also be looking at some of the Sumerian views on the afterlife. These past couple of days I've been talking with several folks who are interested in the Sumerian myths of the Anunnaki, for example. And they're surprised to learn that the Anunnaki weren't here for the purposes like of mining gold and other things such as that. They were more concerned with the afterlife and helping us to safely and successfully navigate the afterlife regions. So this is the pretext of what we're going to be talking about. And one of the motifs that's common to many of these afterlife systems is the idea of morphing, of transmutation or transfiguration, a change in form. Because we're all in the process of ascending right as we speak here. We are in fact morphing into our next higher level vibration or variation of ourselves. And life in our human body is precious, and every breath we take is a gift, but it's a fact that part of what we want to recognize is that being in the human body is an intermediary phase from our divine spark or our soul's perspective. In fact, from the Gnostic perspective, it is our soul or divine spark that manifests the human body. It grows the human body on the earth plane as a vehicle for transportation for the soul, an energy harvesting device, information gathering device, and a method for us to work out karma. And that's what they said that the human body was for, was all of those things. And ultimately, they tell us that our divine spark, this spark of the godlight, if you will, has the power to morph the human body into its next higher dimension or higher level form. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, they call this the seraphim. And as I explored last night, the ancients believed that the human body can be shifted or changed, morphed into its angelic state, especially that of the seraphim, beings of pure light and pure love. I'm also going to be comparing them with the Tibetan rainbow body of light tradition. The Tibetans believe that the human body is designed to be spun into a vortex of energy that ultimately manifests as 5-colored rainbow light, leaving behind only hair, toe, and fingernails. So think about that. that your body is designed to be spun into this vortex, and the whole thing can be transmuted into light spontaneously, instantly, according to the Tibetans, leaving behind only hair, toe, and fingernails, which have no nerves to be transmuted. That's what your body is from the Tibetan perspective. And by the way, they teach that this rainbow body teaching did not come from Earth. It's an extraterrestrial teaching that in fact is taught in 13 star systems, including our own. And these star systems are linked with these rainbow body beings coming and going from these other star systems and having the ability to morph or phase back and forth between the material and the immaterial realm. So what I've done is put my picture here in the center of the seraphim and the Tibetan rainbow body image, because they all teach us that that's who we really are. And we're going to be exploring that concept in more detail as we go. But first, I want to bring in some concepts from my book, The Secret of SION, because this is the work that put me on the discovery of the path of souls and linking together these various ancient traditions about morphing and also navigating the afterlife. And I want to begin by talking about the cover image for the book. It's a Renaissance painting by Antonio Campi. The painting hangs in the Louvre in Paris, France. In the center of the image, the subject is the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, which is all about him demonstrating this ancient technology of morphing the body into light. In the center of the painting, we see Mary Magdalene. She's the ringleader of this event. We've got a traditional image of the crucifixion here, Jesus with the two thieves on either side. And then as we pan around the painting, we come over here to the left and we see the resurrection. We see Jesus in the tomb radiating this powerful spiritual light. He is manifesting his light body, or what is called the glory body in the Christian tradition. In an instant, in a flash of light, he dematerialized his body into light, and then, according to Shroud of Turin researchers, beamed himself as a light being through the shroud, leaving that photographic image on the shroud, which, as I mentioned last night, Italian energy researchers have now proven that it was created from a sudden burst of uniform light coming from the body of the figure in the shroud, whom many believe to be Jesus. So here's Antonio Campi's version of this resurrection where he's bursting into light. And this isn't something that just happened to Jesus. The Tibetans teach that this technology is encoded within the DNA of every single one of us. We're all sort of like caterpillars. Jesus is the butterfly. We're in a pupil phase, a student phase. This is the master. And as you look at images such as this, it always reminds me of a cartoon I saw once of the two caterpillars looking up at the butterfly saying, "You'll never get me up in one of those things." And that's the essential or core predicament where we're all at. We identify with our pupil caterpillar phase. And what this work asks you to do is to identify with your butterfly phase, to link with that aspect of yourself. It's coded within you. And what we need to do is to learn how to activate that code, power up that code. And maybe we won't beam ourselves into or transform ourselves into a beaming light being, but we will be able to raise our vibration and get closer to these beings who have been able to manifest this light body. And I can assure you that all of these traditions say that these beings are present with us now, willing and ready to take us to the next level. So after the resurrection, now comes the ascension. And this is what Antonio Campi shows in the upper right-hand corner of the painting. He takes us in his imagination to a corkscrewing or spiraling mountain. Could be Glastonbury Tor, could be any number of sacred mountains around the world. We see two angels at the top of the mountain. These are the two angels in white that were present in the tomb of Jesus as he's morphing or resurrecting into his light body. And then up above, he shows us the ascension. And we see Jesus in midair ascending through a vortex. We know it's a vortex because when we look inside the painting, and as we do so, we see that Jesus is being followed by various souls. The Bible tells us these are the pure souls from the Old Testament time. Adam, Eve, other advanced or pure souls who Jesus went and retrieved during the 3 days between crucifixion and resurrection rather. So these are the pure souls who are following him on the path of souls along this ascension path. And they're referred to as the successful or the righteous souls. The successful souls, of course, are the ones who ascend. And as we look into detail here, we see that Campi has done a couple of very clever things. He shows concentric rings here in this orb, which could well be the sun. He doesn't say it's the sun, but I feel comfortable in suggesting to you that Jesus is ascending into the heavens through the sun. And what he also shows is the sun with the concentric rings indicating the portal or the gateway, and also the sound waves or vibrations. And he also shows this ring of stars. Now, anytime I'm in an ancient or modern painting, it doesn't matter, and I see a ring of stars, as we see here, I'm thinking Stargate. And in fact, what Antonio Campi has presented in his painting here is what is known as ancient Egyptian, what I call ancient Egyptian Stargate metaphysics. The ancient Egyptians believed that the way to heaven was through the sun, the SION. And they viewed our sun as a sun tunnel, a star tunnel, or in fact, a Stargate. And so very cleverly, Antonio Campi is showing the sun as this open portal or gateway through which Christ is ascending. Now, this is reflecting the ancient view that our sun, in fact, is a conscious entity, and that the sun, furthermore, is our great illuminator or initiator. And if we want to get to heaven, we want to know the sun. And we want to especially know that the sun is, in fact, a portal or a gateway. In fact, it's a two-way portal or gateway. We know this because in the book of Acts, we're told that Jesus was taken up before the disciples' very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They were looking up intently into the sky as he was going, when suddenly two men dressed in white stood beside them, and they said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking into the sky? This same Jesus who was taken from you into heaven will come back the same way you have seen him go into heaven." So this path of souls is a two-way pathway. He's going to be coming and going through the same celestial gate, our sun, and through the same technology. And the idea, once again, is that, as this Christian story affirms, that once Jesus morphs into his butterfly phase, he then, in his light body phase, he then has the ability to phase back and forth between the material and the immaterial realm. The Bible and the Gnostic records tell us this. He ate with the disciples. He walked with the disciples. He appeared to them repeatedly, offering them teaching and instruction, especially in the Gnostic texts, the ones outside the Bible, where he specifically gave to Mary Magdalene and other disciples information and key knowledge about how to navigate the afterlife. This is what's been lost to traditional Christianity, but again, it affirms the idea that the afterlife realm is a natural and navigable realm. Certainly nothing to be feared. It's well known, well documented where we go, and in fact, how we can get there. So the idea is that our sun is this portal, or this gateway that links us in with these other realms, even perhaps into other dimensions. As I mentioned, it's a purely ancient Egyptian idea here, where in the Book of the Dead, you see the sun in this symbol here for the gateway, and above it is the Egyptian hieroglyph for heaven. And the way we read this cartoon is that the way to heaven is through the sun. Well, you know what's interesting about this is that now cutting-edge physicists are beginning to view our sun as a wormhole. Scientists at the Nuclear Research Center in Russia now believe that our sun produces what they call, at its core, it produces what they call a perfect fluid that keeps the mouth of the wormhole at the core of our sun open and enables our sun to link to other star systems. This goes along with exactly what the Tibetans teach about the rainbow body of light, that our star in our star system is connected to at least 12 other star systems within our galaxy. And instead of being empty tunnels, these stargates or wormholes within our sun would contain this fluid that would keep these wormholes open and enable travel between star systems. So cutting-edge science, cutting-edge physics in Russia is now matching up with exactly what the ancient Egyptians and the Gnostic Christians had taught over 2,000 years ago. Very exciting stuff. This story of following a path of souls is spread throughout the Bible. The story of Jacob's ladder is, of course, one of the most famous illustrations of the path of souls concept. In the story, Jacob lays his head on a stone. He falls into a dream. He sees a ladder ascending into the heavens with angels coming and going from the celestial realms. William Blake, who painted this beautiful painting here, shows it in a very dramatic and very beautiful way, where Jacob is in the dream, the ladder is extending from his consciousness, and we see these light beings, these celestial beings, angelic beings, coming and going upon this spiraling staircase that William Blake shows us goes from the earth through our sun. Now, I don't have time to get into the details here, but in fact, NASA has shown that there are magnetic portals that open every 8 minutes between our sun and the earth. And the artwork that NASA has on their website showing these magnetic portals, that they also call X portals, look like serpent ropes that connect Earth with the sun. And the idea is that these serpent ropes aren't the wormholes that we're talking about, but they are magnetic lines upon which souls theoretically could ride from the earth into the sun, and then the sun itself becomes the wormhole or the gateway that links to other star systems. Or NASA even proposes scaling up that these ropes, these magnetic ropes, even connect our sun with the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So once again, NASA, modern science, is now beginning to confirm and affirm what the ancients said about these interconnecting pathways that link Earth with the sun and the sun with the rest of the galaxy. One of my favorite paintings that illustrates the path of souls is by Hieronymus Bosch. We talked about him last night when we showed that column or pillar of light. People who have had the near-death experience really connect with this painting. He calls it the ascent to the Empyrean, the ascent to the realm of fire. And what we see here is a soul beginning the path of initiation here and following kind of a spiraling or zigzag path into this circular symbol here, which represents a gateway. And what we notice here, and I'll go back here, is that as the soul rises, it becomes less and less material. Because as the Gnostics taught, the physical body isn't leaving this planet. The physical body will be morphed into a different form, a light body form that is capable of ascending through the sun and traveling to these other realms or regions of space. And what Hieronymus Bosch shows here is this gateway filled with light, and it's composed of concentric rings, indicating we're entering a portal. And what we notice in the detail here is that the soul is naked, indicating that it's in its pure form. It's accompanied by an angel, and as it enters into this tunnel of light, we can see now that it is in fact a light being. It has morphed into its light being form and now goes through this celestial tunnel, be it a star tunnel, sun tunnel, Stargate, or wormhole. It's all indicative of the same thing. And people who have had the near-death experience tell us that seeing this tunnel of light, which is often accompanied by other luminous beings, maybe family members or teachers, masters, ascended beings, is the most loving experience imaginable. Absolutely nothing to be feared here. And so I call this the tunnel of love, because that's what the wormhole is. Because love is the power, as I said last night, that drives the Ark of the Covenant. Love is also the power that opens these stargates or wormholes. That's the only way we're going to get off this rock, according to these teachings, is to become a being of pure light and pure love. And as we awaken our hearts and connect with this divine love, these portals now become apparent to us. We begin studying them. And that's why you're here today, because your heart is opening. Your heart is open to this idea that you know you're in a caterpillar phase here. You know there's something more within you that's waiting to be given birth. And that's why you've devoted the time, energy, and effort to come here, to gather with everybody here and to bring this teaching into your life. So what we want to affirm from this, or take from this, is that there are these celestial beings, these light beings, who have gone on the path before us, and they're keeping the way, they're keeping the door open for us. And maybe some of you have had dreams about these beings, maybe some of you have had near-death experiences or other experiences where this artwork really resonates with you. And now what I'm suggesting to you is that you're ready to take the next step on your path. So where does the path lead? Once they go through the sun and they're out into the galactic regions, where do these stargates or wormholes lead? Well, we could look at it from the Sumerian perspective, where it leads through something called the Nibiru, the gateway. We could look at it in the ancient Egyptian tradition, where it leads to the field or the dimension of the blessed. But just for the moment, let's key on the Judeo-Christian tradition, where the gateway leads to is a place called SION, which means peace. And in the book of Hebrews, we read that once Jesus resurrects and ascends, he goes to the heavenly Jerusalem, a celestial region, the city of the living God, where we discover there are thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly. And in Christian art, this is how they portray Sion. It's symbolized by the rainbow rings, the concentric rainbow rings, which indicates a portal or a gateway. And we see all these beings dressed in white. These are the celestial beings. These are transformed humans who have completed the earthly cycle of human evolution and now have gone and dwelled in the celestial Sion. Another example of the Christian artwork is this one here by John Martin. We see the earth plane down here, and just above it we see all the beings dressed in white. These white robes are symbolic of what they call the light body, the glory body, or even the rainbow body, because when you mix all the colors of the rainbow, they form the color white. So these are actually light beings. They're at a higher vibration than the earth plane, and they dwell in the celestial Sion, which is just above our frequency or vibration. We can just about perceive them. If we go into deep states of meditation and states of, especially deep states of love and compassion, this is the frequency or vibration of these beings where we have the best opportunity to connect with them. And so what I've done is gone into the Christian art that shows the various pathways leading from Earth to the celestial Sion. And from the Renaissance on, you see all kinds of examples of the path of souls where they clearly map it out for us and encourage us to get to know this afterlife region and learn how to navigate it while we're in the body. So the time in the body becomes sort of like flight training, if you will. And in fact, this used to be what the ancients spent a lot of time doing, was this pre-death ascension training. So that by the time it came time to leave the body, you were very familiar with the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the afterlife. And then what happened, and not to slam the church, but the church took control of death. The church took the keys of heaven and said, we control the gate to heaven now. And individuals are not allowed to imitate Christ in his ascension. You are not allowed, according to traditional church teaching, to become a Christ-like being and to learn how to morph into your resurrection body as Christ did, because only he could do that. And the church will let you know when it's appropriate for you to be able to do that. Whereas groups such as the Cathars and others, the Gnostics as they were called, that's what they devoted their whole teaching to. They believed that earth life was a school. It was an opportunity for the soul to evolve and to become the maximum soul that it could potentially be, and to actually become a Christ-like being, something that carries an enormous amount of responsibility. But looking at this here, what we see is the layer cake motif of the universe here, the hierarchy that the church brought along with it. Before that, it was the universe was conceived of as a circle, as a ring. Everything was in the ring. Everything was all one. The church came along and said, nope, there's a hierarchy. You're the lowly ones. We're up here, and we're the ones closest to God, and we're going to look down at you from our pulpit, and if you're lucky, you might be able to get one rung up on the ladder. So that's why you see the layer cake here, because it indicates that there's a control mechanism here, and the gateways have keepers, and there are minders that are there to tell you when and how you're going to be able to access these gateways. But it's still worthwhile looking at this artwork because it's informative of this idea that our path does lead through well-known gateways that lead from the earth plane into the celestial realms. But the truth of the matter is that anyone at any time can access these gateways and can access the celestial beings that are there at those gateways to assist us, and we can even connect directly as individuals with the throne of Christ and bring that energy into our lives if we choose. It's the highest love imaginable, this energy coming from this throne. It's not a place of judgment in the traditional sense. It's a place of balancing. And in fact, it's accessed through what we today think of as the Stargate or the wormhole. So where is SION, this celestial throne of Christ and these ascended human beings? The thousands of humans gathered together in joyful assembly. Well, the Bible says that SION was thought to lie at the center of the world and on top of Yahweh's holy mountain, which was also called SION, located in Jerusalem, whose base was rooted in the depths of the underworld and whose highest reaches, the heights of Zaphon, stretched into the farthest heavens. This is the way for the Bible to say that Christ's throne, the center of all existence, is perhaps beyond our comprehension. It stretches into the farthest heavens. Now, at the time the Bible was written, when they looked up into the sky and they saw the stars, they thought that was the totality of the universe. They didn't even know they lived in a galaxy. And again, the church tried to convince everybody that Earth was the center of the universe, which is an absolutely just bizarre notion. Because at that time, all they had to do was look to the ancient Egyptians who already had mapped out the stars and star systems and had this knowledge of our connection to our galaxy and even other galaxies. But scientifically speaking, it wasn't until the 1930s that we even knew we lived in a galaxy. Thank you, Edwin Hubble, for whom the Hubble Space Telescope is named. Now we know that there's over 450 billion galaxies that inhabit the observable universe. That's the universe we can see. Now they absolutely believe that we live in fact not a universe, but a multiverse. There could in fact be infinite universes. You're going to control that? You're going to tell people that you're going to control access to this universe that's within a universe, within a universe, within a universe? You can see how they're losing control very rapidly with these discoveries that the true Garden of Eden, the place where our souls came from, is inhabited by all these other hundreds of billions of galaxies similar to our own, with hundreds of billions of planets within them, with hundreds of millions of inhabited worlds beside or on those planets, and all of them connected through an interpenetrating system of stargates and wormholes. Where did you come from? Before you inhabited this body and you came into this realm here to explore, where did you come from? Where are you going to go after you put down this mortal coil? How are you going to get there? What's your exit strategy? How many hours did you spend working on this yesterday? How many minutes? Okay, how many seconds did you spend yesterday mapping out where you're going to spend eternity? You get my point. They've done a real good con job on us, haven't they? They've got us thinking this is all there is, baby. You know, just focus on the 401k, focus on paying off the house, get the car paid for, put the kids through college. You've done a great job. And you probably have. But there's more to it than that. What we're talking about is the caterpillar phase. What we're talking about here is embracing our true self, our butterfly phase, and connecting with the greater universe, which is a place of immense love and light. What I do in my work in the Path of Souls, and by the way, this presentation today is based on a 6-hour workshop that will be online on my website next week. But what I do is I localize this teaching and say, well, wait a minute. What if, we can think of the throne that we're talking about here, our next destination, as some place thousands of light years away, perhaps. But I tend to localize it in the center of our Milky Way galaxy, because there are numerous traditions, including the ancient Egyptian and others, that tell us that the center of our galaxy is the place our souls came from or through before we came into earthly incarnation. So this is a NASA image of our Milky Way galaxy, our great mother disk, the mothership that we're all floating around here together. This wide field image from NASA shows the galactic center region in the Milky Way. It's located between the constellations of Sagittarius and Scorpio, and I view that location as the throne we are seeking to link with. So in these images, when we see Christ enthroned, I'm saying, well, okay, let's just propose that that's the center of the galaxy. But in the esoteric version of this story, in the Kabbalistic tradition, for example, the more esoteric reference is made to SION being the spiritual point from which reality emerges. So it's not a physical location, it's a spiritual point that we're trying to connect with here, out of which all reality emerges. So let's talk about where we emerged from. In the Western esoteric tradition, most of it's based on the Judeo-Christian tradition. The book of Genesis tells us about the beginning that takes us back to the Garden of Eden. Ezekiel called the Garden of Eden Sion. And here in this painting by Giovanni di Paolo, another Renaissance painter, we see Eden portrayed as these concentric rainbow rings. Again, sound, vibration comes to mind. And in the esoteric tradition, the Judeo-Christian tradition, we're told that Eden, our source place, was a place of pure light and pure love. And when we originally dwelled in Eden, we were beings of pure light and pure love. The concentric rings also suggest a vortex or a portal. So maybe Eden was also a portal. And we know that what happened in the book of Genesis is that after Eve has that encounter with the serpent of wisdom, Adam and Eve are evicted, humanity is evicted from the Garden of Eden, which was what we see here. We see these angelic beings escorting Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. Now, the book of Genesis tells us that two key things happened when humanity was evicted from this place of pure light and pure love. One, the Old Testament God Yahweh constructed a gate at the east of Eden, placed a flashing, flaming sword in the center of that gate, and put two cherubim on the other side of it, and forbade humanity to come back through that gate. Well, if Eden is a place other than on the earth, then that gate must have been a Stargate, in my opinion. And ever since we've been escorted out of that gate, we've been trying to get back through the Stargate, to get out of the Earth matrix back to our original celestial source place or home. The second thing that Yahweh did is the one that most people forget about. Yahweh made for Adam and Eve coats of skin. Now, if you're in Sunday school, your preacher or pastor is going to tell you that those skins they think were probably maybe cow skin or deer skin or some other animal skin. But the coats of skin that Yahweh made for us, according to the esoteric Judeo-Christian tradition, are our bodies. The coats of skin are human skin, because they believe that originally our souls are beings of pure light and pure love. And when we're escorted out of that region, we now find ourselves trapped in one of these orange prison jumpsuits, if you will. And we're all wandering around on this planet thinking this is all there is. But in fact, according to this tradition, what we're trying to learn to do is to escape this region. We're trying to learn to transcend this human condition. Enjoy it while we're here because it's a gift, but ultimately we want to get beyond our coats of skin and see ourselves as we originally were, as beings of pure light and pure love. Now, why the soul would want to step down its frequency and experience this earth matrix, which is considered to be much lower in vibration than the place we came from, is a subject for another discussion. But the fact is we're just trying to establish here is that this is what the Judeo-Christian tradition is based on. And then, of course, it's Jesus that comes along in the New Testament and shows us the way to morph out of this skin in his crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. But what I'm asking you to consider now is that Eden, according to these teachings, is not located on earth. There is an earthly Eden, but our original source place is not on this planet. And what I'm asking you to consider is that based on what Antonio Campi shows here, is he has a zodiac, Giovanni di Paolo, he shows a zodiac ringing Eden here, or on the outer edge of the ring of Eden. He's pointing between the constellations of Sagittarius and Scorpio. That's the exact location of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And like the ancient Egyptians, like the Tibetans and others, the Mayans included, they point to the center of our galaxy as the celestial Eden, as the place our souls came from or through, and that's the place where we're trying to get back to as well. We're trying to access that Stargate that will take us back to the celestial Eden. Now, the thing about it is there's a black hole that exists at the center of our Milky Way galaxy. The folks up at Harvard pointed an X-ray observatory at the galactic center recently, and they took this beautiful X-ray image here of the galactic center. That bright light in the center is the black hole at the center of the galaxy. And you see all this rainbow imagery surrounding the center of the galaxy. What's interesting about that is that when you look to those images, the Christian images of the throne of Christ, which I've suggested to you as the center of the galaxy, it's all rainbow imagery. That could be pure synchronicity, a pure coincidence, or it could be suggestive that we're on the right track here, that we're linking up what modern science is saying that confirms what the ancients were saying about this celestial location. We're down here. All the good stuff we want is up here. And there's no bridge, there's no rope, there's no ladder, there's no apparent way for us to get from Earth up to the galactic core. But yes, there is. There is a bridge, there is a rope, there is a ladder, there is a Stargate. We just need to learn to become aware of it. And if you weren't aware of it 5 minutes ago, now you know it exists. And now we can begin orienting ourselves towards that path to be able to grab hold of that connecting link, that cosmic conduit that we are assured links Earth with the throne, be it the galactic center or elsewhere. So this is why these images of Christ on his rainbow throne are so important, because it's being affirmed by what we see from NASA and other space agencies that are extremely interested in the center of our Milky Way galaxy. And I believe that that's what this imagery is showing here, is that path of souls linking us with that celestial throne. Now, what the book of Hebrews tells us, that when we get to the throne of Christ, is that we're going to be joined by other beings. It's inhabited by advanced celestial beings. At least that's what the book of Hebrews says. It says our arrival at the celestial SION marks our acceptance into an innumerable company of angels and just humans made perfect. Well, who are these people? And how did they get there? What did they know or believe that made them perfect? Well, when you look up the meaning of these words, you find out the word just means upright, righteous, or balanced. These are good or godly people, people that are the good-hearted ones, the pure souls. Humans are a member of the species Homo sapien, not animal, divine, or machine. Made means they were shaped or formed. They did something to transform themselves into this perfected state. And they are perfect, which means complete, fully developed, whole, or holy. It also means compassionate. So what the Bible is telling us is that this celestial region is inhabited by people just like you and I, who have followed this path and went from unholy or incomplete humans to whole, holy, or complete beings. And that's our quest. Now, let's think about this. Wholeness is symbolized by a circle. And a circle is 360 degrees. So what I would ask you to consider is, on a scale of 0 to 360, with 360 being whole, holy, or complete, where are you at? Pick a number. Anybody want to shout out a number of where they're at? There's no right or wrong answer, by the way, but pick a number. Shout a number. 7? That's a good number. I happen to think we're all at least 240 out of 360. We're 2/3 divine. And I base this on the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's the oldest human, it's the second oldest human story. The second oldest. It's about a Sumerian king named Gilgamesh. He's told by a goddess, Inanna, that he's 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. And if he wants to get through the gate of the gods, which is the goal of all of us, he's going to have to clean up his act. Because if he tries to go through the gate at 2/3 holy, it's going to be like walking into a blender. He's going to get his feathers ruffled. So what Gilgamesh has to do, which is what we all have to do, is to push ourselves from 240 up to 360. You have mastered 240. You're living it right now. Look at your life. What are you doing mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally? Whatever it is you're doing, that's 240 for you. And what I would encourage you to do is to take some inventory and think, okay, I want to get up to, say, 270. When I'm at 270, I won't be doing the same things mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally that I'm doing right now. Nor will you. We will be doing different things. We'll be reading different books. We'll be eating different foods. We'll be doing different things physically. We'll be feeling different things emotionally and spiritually. We need to go into our imagination and imagine what those things are. Then we need to list them out. And your homework assignment is, I want you to come up with 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 different new things that you'll enjoy doing when you're at 270 that you're presently not doing. And then prioritize those things. Take that list and go perceived easiest to perceived most difficult. And then start doing those things. And before you know it, you won't be at 240 anymore. You'll be up to 270. And when you're at 270, your life will be dramatically different. It will be dramatically, by definition, improved. You'll be more whole. You'll be more complete. You might even be more holy. Can I get an amen to that? I mean, isn't that what we want? Is to raise ourselves up so that we can raise everyone around us. That's the objective, in a way, at least in my opinion. So, and by the time you get to 270, you're going to be ready to then gradually go up the spiral to 290 and beyond. Some of you might be way on up there, and you just need to do some simple little things here that will help you to really raise your vibration. And like one of those crystal bowls, you'll suddenly just take off, and this ring or vibration will start manifesting from within you, and then here comes the big wow. So wholeness or holiness is actually our goal here. Jesus talked about this race of humans that inhabit the celestial SION in the Apocryphon of John, one of the Gnostic Gospels. He appeared to John and he said, I have come to teach you about what is and what was and what will be in order for you to understand the invisible world and the world that is visible. What do you mean the invisible world? What are you talking about? Yeah, those other dimensions, the multiverse, not the universe, but the multiverse. And then he says, I'm here to teach you about the immovable race of perfect humanity. Now, we've all been conditioned to say, nobody's perfect. Oh, he thinks he's so perfect. You know, that's just a bunch of BS, man. We should all be striving for perfection because we are all inherently perfect, and we're wearing these masks that tell us that we're not perfect, right? But it's already within us, and we are part of the race of perfect humanity, and we can achieve wholeness and holiness. And anybody who tells you you can't is probably working for the devil. Right? Something like that. Or some crazy, entity somewhere. Then he tells John, raise your head, understand my lessons, share them with any others who have received the Spirit, who are from the immovable race of perfect humanity. Clearly spelling out there's this whole other race of human beings out there that have completed this cycle, and they want us to join them. In fact, that's our earthly quest, is to be reveal ourselves as these immovable light beings. When you look to Christian art that shows the throne, we're always presented with images of Christ sitting in his ring of stars, which I again refer to as a... You said it, I didn't say it. A Stargate. And we see the perfect light beings beside whom, who are referred to as the seraphim. Humans who have achieved the highest level of human spiritual achievement, perfection, and now dwell at this throne. And, there's part of ourselves that probably already dwells there now. And so when you see the seraphim, they are six-winged angels. Again, they're considered to be beings of pure light and pure love. They're called the burning ones. They're often portrayed as red angels. They're called the burning ones because they burn with the love of the Creator. In fact, the Renaissance taught us, the teachers of the Renaissance told us that if you want to become a seraphim, meditate on the love of the Creator. That's all you have to do. Meditate on the love of our Creator. and you will be transformed by that burning love. Play your Elvis record now. The burning ones, the beings of pure light and pure love, are our great instructors. They are here to share this vibration or frequency of ultimate love and perfection and transform us. They're humanoid beings because they were humans. They are humans who have achieved the next level of human manifestation. And they have 6 wings. And I wondered for a long time about why the 6 wings, and then I was studying what's called Merkaba mysticism, this throne chariot mysticism, and what's referred to as the star tetrahedron as the symbol for our light body. It has 6 points like the Star of David. And that's when I realized, well, wait a minute, maybe that's why the seraphim have 6 wings, because it corresponds with the 6 points of the star tetrahedron. They are light beings, and they would certainly travel the cosmos in their throne chariots. We get additional descriptions of these beings in this Merkaba or throne literature. Their walking is like the appearance of a lightning bolt. A vision of them is like a vision of a rainbow. Their faces are like a vision of a bride. Their wings are like the radiance of the clouds of glory. So these are glowing, rainbow-like beings. Their walking is like lightning. They're light beings. This is a beautiful description. Isaiah had a similar description when he looked into the Holy of Holies. So what I did with that description, I said, now wait a minute. Rainbow-like, glorious beings? That sounds to me like the Tibetan rainbow body beings. The rainbow body teaching in Tibet, by the way, is called the Great Perfection Teaching. The Tibetans teach us how to become perfect humans and join the immovable race of the perfect light humans, becoming whole, holy, and complete. Now, when I looked at the swirling vortex-shaped bodies of the seraphim, and I see the swirling vortex-shaped body of the Tibetan rainbow body beings, I'm like, wait a minute, I think there's a match here. And the Tibetans don't say it, and the Judeo-Christian tradition doesn't say that they're interchangeable, but I'm saying that. And I'm asking you to follow me on that path of supposition that I'm making here, this path of connection, because I believe that they're both describing exactly the same beings. In Tibet, they call the great perfection the mystic rapture. And I'm sure you all know those born-again Christians that think they're going to be raptured out of here at the time of the second coming. This is what they're really talking about. They're talking about their body just being zapped, transformed into their glory body, light body, resurrection body, body of bliss, superliminal body. There's 100 different names for it. Every spiritual tradition on the planet has a name for the next level of human manifestation, the butterfly phase. None of them teach you how to manifest it, because we're not worthy. According to many of these traditions, we're sinners. We're filthy garbage, in their opinion. And we're not able to manifest this because we're just stupid. You know, something like that. I'm being overly dramatic, but you get the idea. You've probably heard all these raps before. This is why many people just can't wait to get out of those stupid churches, because that's all they preach, right? What if Sunday school was about teaching us that we are immortal beings of light? And our quest here is to graduate Earth and achieve our rainbow body or our body of light. And in fact, the Tibetans teach us that this isn't some gradual process. You can do it in one lifetime. The good news is that you've been working on this from lifetime to lifetime, chances are. And if you choose to, you can achieve it in one lifetime. In this lifetime, by meditating on the love of the Creator, by connecting with your true self. So in Tibetan artwork, when they show this next level of manifestation, this is what it looks like. It's a swirling mass of rainbow-colored light. Again, the rainbow body. You'll often see a vortex at the heart chakra. You'll often see another vortex at the third eye, indicating the heart and the mind are united. The inner male and female are united. And we become these powerful rainbow body beings who are beings of pure light and pure love. Now, what I've done is to match them up with the seraphim concept in the Judeo-Christian tradition of these swirling vortexes of light and love that compose the body of the seraphim, and I'm saying they are the same beings. In fact, both traditions teach us that we are, in fact, already those beings. but we're inhabiting the earth plane, and we've got this mask on right now. The Tibetans teach us that we can all achieve the rainbow body of light spontaneously in one lifetime. And the 3-step process for doing so is, first you have to imagine it. And this is why I have gone to such effort to collect this imagery, because we have to be directly introduced to our true inner nature. We have to be able to imagine it. We have to be able to see it visually. Then the next step is we have to believe it. And then we live our lives as holy beings, or as close to holy beings as we can. We make this our North Star. If we're out floating around out there in our life on the shores of Earth, or on the oceans of Earth, and we're wondering which way to go, that's north right there. Holiness is your North Star. Going from 240, where you're at right now, to 260, 270, on up the scale, that's north. And as long as you're heading in that direction, you're going to be just fine. You're going in the right place. So you have to live it. You have to imagine it. You have to then believe it. And then you have to live your life with the expectation that this is your next level. So what I've done is taken some of these images and just superimposed my picture of it, because I already know that's who I am. And so are you. And I do my very best from a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis not to look at you in your orange prison jumpsuit. I try to look beyond that, and I try to see the holy being within you, and try to come from my place of holiness and speak to your place of holiness. It's not always easy. In fact, sometimes it's very difficult. And you all know what I'm talking about. But that's why I said last night, every moment of our lives is Judgment Day. It's not some future event. It's now. It's this moment. From every single breath we take is an opportunity to connect with our divine self or our holy self, and to live our lives from that place. And if you start doing it, and your vibration starts spreading out, that starts influencing everyone and everything you come into contact with, raising all to the next level, and then it's going to become really easy. It's that 100th monkey effect, right? Used to be you couldn't run a 4-minute mile. Now everybody can do it, right? Used to be, we couldn't go to the moon. Now we do it routinely. There's all kinds of examples of things that seem to be impossible, or we're told we're impossible, or beyond human capability, that aren't any longer. And this is one of them. So I've present this art in my presentations and encourage you to put it on your screensaver on your computer, to put it on your cell phone, to put it on your refrigerator doors. Just a reminder that we want to live our lives from this place, and not from the place of strictly our earthly self. I actually got on this path. I was at a conference, a UFO conference. It must have been 5-6 years ago. Really lovely couple came up to me and said that they loved my work, and that in fact my work on the ancient Egyptians and the Stargate metaphysics, as I call it, answered for them a question that the Tibetans wouldn't answer about the rainbow body. This couple told me they both had PhDs from the Harvard Divinity School. They knew the Dalai Lama. They lived in Indiana, right? And their specialty was the rainbow body. And they told me essentially what I just told you about the rainbow body, that the human body can be spun into this vortex of energy and manifest its next level of manifestation. And they said they always wondered, once the lamas achieve the rainbow body and can travel to these other star systems where the rainbow body is taught, they wanted to know, well, how did they get there? And the Tibetans wouldn't answer that because they didn't know the answer, they said, or maybe because it was secretive. And then they're watching my DVD about the Egyptian star walkers, and my comparison here, my original comparison, by the way, of the Egyptian ship of eternity, the Ark of the Millions of Years with the wormhole, and they said that's it. Once these beings manifest the rainbow body, they must then be able to travel the stars through wormholes. In fact, then they took it one step forward and they said that in fact our body is the wormhole itself. Now that's a really powerful thought. Think about that the next time you're putting your makeup on or you're shaving. What you're really dealing with here. The immense gift of the human body and what it's actually capable of doing. It's utterly, utterly inspiring. A wormhole connects our universe to itself and us to the universe. And in my opinion, the U shape of the wormhole, as modern science portrays it here, is the primordial symbol, the uber symbol, the super symbol of the universe. In fact, it illustrates our life process. We all are born, we all live, and we all die. And in between, we come from an inhuman past where we're floating around the galaxy somewhere, maybe on another star system, maybe the galactic core, maybe outside our galaxy. I don't know, only you know where you came from. And then we experience our life, which is our present. We're in the wormhole. And at some point, we're going to experience the future, which is our resurrection. This is the very map of Stargate U, which is what I call Earth School. Stargate U. You learning that you are a Stargate, and you are in fact manifesting your Stargate body, and are this immortal spiritual master, a member of the immovable race of the perfect light humans. You've just forgotten that. Good morning, good afternoon. This is your wake-up call. This is your chance to say, wow, okay, I'm part of something really magnificent. Speaking of the ancient Egyptians, let's talk about the god Ptah. He's shown in his feathered cloak here. He's got his magic staff that runs the length of his body. Ptah is a very interesting character in the ancient Egyptian pantheon of gods. Here's his business card. Whoops, let's go back. Ptah, whoops, dancing all around here, sorry. Here's Ptah's business card. He's the architect of the heaven and earth, the master craftsman in working metals, sculptor, designer, and fashioner of the bodies of men. This is the god the ancient Egyptians said came from the star system Sirius and tweaked our DNA. Speaking of DNA, what's that double helix doing in his business card? You know, when I show that to Egyptologists and I say, you know, that looks an awful lot like the double helix of DNA, they're like, oh, you're nuts, dude. The ancient Egyptians didn't know a thing about DNA. Well, then how come the double helix is in the business card of the god who you said fashioned the bodies of men? They had to have known an awful lot about human DNA. And here's the proof, in my opinion. This god of technology not only crafted the human body, but the ancient Egyptians said he's the guy that also made or fashioned the Ark of the Millions of Years, the ship of eternity, the wormhole boats. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, if he made both the body and the wormhole, did he make the two to go together? Sort of like a key into a lock? Did he implant within our DNA? And I say he's a celestial being, so he's probably neither male nor female, but he's portrayed as male. Is he the one that tweaked our DNA and put those codes in there that could awaken us so that we can then transform into our light body? That's what the Egyptians believed. He wears a feathered cloak, multicolored. He also has these really powerful, this vortex of rainbow colored like light around his neck and his torso here. Now, when I look at that, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've seen, you know, this kind of motif before. This swirling body motif. I've seen that there. And I believe that the ancient Egyptian idea of the resurrection body is the same as the Tibetan rainbow body. And so that puts us in a whole other category of teaching here. We don't have more time to go into that, but there is a lot of ancient precedent for this idea that I'm expressing to you today. I always look for examples of the divine feminine as well. This is the white Tara, the Buddhist goddess of compassion. She's in her portal or gateway. Her third eye is wide open, just with like that swirling energy vortex thing again. And when we look at her here, we zero in on her knee, and what we find is that she's wearing her rainbow socks today. She's a rainbow body being, wearing her earthly clothes. Same thing here with this white Tara. She's in her rainbow rings, which symbolizes the portal or the gateway, and she has achieved the full level of human compassion. She's a being of light and love. And a lot of people use this as like an open eye meditation to connect with this divine being of light, love, and compassion. Let's flip back to Jesus once again. Why did you say he's on the rainbow again? Well, he's in his resurrection body. Resurrection body, glory body, is the Christian term for the rainbow body. Where do you think Jesus went during those 18 missing years between 12 and 30? It's been well documented. He went to Egypt, Iran, Iraq, on into Tibet and India. What was he learning there? He was learning how to do this. There's no question in my mind that that's what we're talking about. And so, from a Judeo-Christian perspective, now Jesus is the exemplar of this teaching. And whenever I see Jesus doing something like this in a painting, you know what I do? I connect. Because I know the image can show us the way. That there is no barrier, really, in consciousness between Christ as an illuminated light being and the painting. That these images were created in order for us to link with this energy. So keep your hands down if you don't want to access your divine self. But if you want to access your divine self, I'd spend a moment here just trying to connect. Any Reiki people here, your hands are probably hot as mine right now. At least I hope they are. This is one way that we can imagine ourselves as a radiant being of light coming right out of our hands, out of our consciousness, out of our mouth, out of every pore of our body. We can radiate this divine light and this divine love. And one very easy way to begin to access that light is through this artwork that I'm presenting here for you, because it was created with that intention. You know how the Tibetans teach the rainbow body? Behind the Dalai Lama's palace at the Potala Palace in Tibet, in Lhasa, Tibet, when they used to be there, they had a circular temple called the Dalai Lama's Secret Temple, 360 degrees of images of the rainbow body. And they would go in there and they would absorb the energy of the images, because the image would show them the way to do this. There is no text that teaches you how to ascend, but there are images that activate our DNA and awaken the coding within us. And this is how the Tibetans teach it. Remember, you imagine it. You are directly introduced to your true inner nature through these images. Then you believe it, and then you live it. All these images are interchangeable. They're all describing exactly the same state of being, and tell us that this state of being is our true nature. We wear it on the inside. These guys wear it on the outside. That's the very simple flip they're asking you to make. We identify with the orange prison jumpsuit. They identify with their divine self. And that's the simple but fairly difficult flip we have to make. Jesus talked about perfection, by the way. There's an episode in the book of Matthew where he says, I tell you the truth, it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, that's why the crash of 2008 was so great, because nobody had any money anymore, right? So take away that part of it, you don't have to worry about money anymore. Again, I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. The eye of the needle is the portal or the gateway. And what Jesus is telling us here, and this, by the way, is a painting by Salvador Dali. I took this photo in the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. He is shown with this rainbow energy coming off of his body. He's in his rainbow body. Actually, he's shown phasing in between the material and the immaterial realm. He's neither in one foot, he's got one foot in this world and one foot in the other world, because he's in that intermediate phase. And what happens in this story is that the rich man had asked Jesus, he said, Jesus, what's required for eternal life? And Jesus replied, follow the commandments, which are? Very well done. Good job. Thank you very much. Usually it's silence when I ask that question. And it's like, come on, guys, we're talking about eternal life here. How do we achieve our eternal light body? Love with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. You want to know how to manifest your light body, your rainbow body, and achieve eternal life? There's your North Star right there. Just do that. With every breath you take, every thought you think, every emotion, do that, and you're going to be just fine. Easier said than done, isn't it? Well, that's why it's so challenging, but that's also why it's so utterly simple. I don't have to say another word here about the process of ascension. I've just told you the whole secret right there. That's all we need to know. Everything else is just kind of, filling up the rest of 45 minutes of our presentation. Oh, it's a little bit more than that, but you get what I'm saying. This is the secret right here. This is why we are on earth. This is what we are here to learn. And we will leave earth when we have demonstrated our ability to do this. That's Judgment Day, when our heart is weighed against the feather of cosmic truth. How light-hearted of a being are you? How light of a being are you? If your heart weighs less than the feather, you go on. If not, it's back to diapers. And we get to do this all over again. Well, the rich man had told Jesus, dude, I've always kept those commandments, and what else is required, Jesus? I've got $42 here. Will that get me through the eye of the needle? And here's Jesus' reply, and here's our punchline. He says, if thou wilt be perfect, meaning whole, holy, complete, and compassionate, go and get rid of all your shit, give it to the poor because it's worthless, and you will have treasure in heaven, and then follow me through the wormhole. Because you're not dragging your garbage with you. It's not going with you. And our culture, though, tells us to put a premium on our garbage. We've got landfills full of it on this planet now. Because we're not following the commandments. Right? So here's our opportunity. And speaking of opportunities, are we fortunate to be born in America at this time? The land of liberty, the land of freedom. There are people all over this planet, about, 7.5 billion people on this planet, out of the 7.7 billion people on this planet, that would give everything they've got, including their wife and children, to be sitting where you're at right now. And sometimes we just squander this opportunity. But the land of liberty was set up as a place where souls could achieve freedom. In fact, in its greatest temple, the U.S. Capitol, which is located in Washington, D.C., some people don't know that, by the way. That's why I'm saying that, not to insult you, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know that the U.S. Capitol is in Washington, D.C. In the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. is the great Temple of Celestial Liberty. That's what they called it originally. The Temple of Cosmic Sovereignty, they called it. All these founding fathers were mystics who believed in the immortality of the soul and wanted to set up a psychological space in this great physical space we call America, where souls could achieve liberty and freedom. And that's what the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution were originally put in place for. And inside the dome of this Temple of Celestial Liberty is one of the greatest alchemical paintings ever. It's called the Apotheosis of George Washington. The word apotheosis means to deify, to raise from a man to a God-man. And half the preachers in this country would declare this heresy. Well, they ought to go to Washington, D.C. and worship at this temple and learn the incredible ascension teachings in this dome that were placed there at the request of our founding fathers and by Abraham Lincoln. What we see is George Washington on a rainbow, just exactly like Jesus on the rainbow. Because Washington was viewed not as just the father of our country, he was viewed as the savior of our country by the mystic-inclined founding fathers. And he is in fact portrayed as a deified being on the rainbow like Christ, because he was viewed by the founding fathers as having ascended into the heavens, where he presently dwells. And what I did in my book, Freedom's Gate, in the DVD presentation, is collect the artwork that demonstrates that this was the foundation of this country. Our present political system is clueless about any of this. absolutely clueless. In fact, they seem to be bent on going the other way. They want to enslave us as opposed to free us. But looking at the artwork of Washington, like for example this one, which hung in the White House and was rescued by Dolly Madison in the War of 1812 when the White House was burned, we see Washington with this rainbow behind him. Why? Because they believed they connected him as a divine Christ-like being, as an ascended being. The Freemasons did the same thing. The Freemasons showed Washington in his full Masonic regalia, and as we come into the detail here, we see behind him is the ladder or stairway to heaven going into this opening in the hole or opening in heaven that is a rainbow gateway. That's the Stargate that Washington was believed to have ascended through. Now, they didn't call it a Stargate. They just visualized him as ascending up the stairway to heaven and entering the divine realms, which they portrayed as a rainbow gateway. But I believe that what Washington is shown achieving here is the rainbow body. Now, I'm going to go back a few slides here. I want to pick out something for you that I think is very fascinating. Washington is on the rainbow. He is in a ring of 72 stars, which I call a Stargate, and he's surrounded by 13 maidens with stars on their heads. And when you go into the Capitol, as I've done many times, and you listen to the tour guides, they tell you that those 13 maidens with stars on their heads represent the 13 original colonies. Well, I know the difference when someone's peeing on my boots and telling me it's raining. Because I know we're looking at a celestial scene. That's not an earthly scene. Washington's not on earth, he's in the heavens. So who are those 13 maidens with stars on their heads? What do they represent? Oh, I know what they represent, or I know what I believe they represent. Remember what the Tibetans said about the rainbow body teaching? It's taught in 13 star systems, including our own. What if they're telling us that Earth is a colony in a federation of star systems where this Enlightenment teaching is taught? And that is what is encoded in the dome of the U.S. Capitol. That Earth and Sol, our star system, is linked with the Pleiades, with Sirius, Ursa Major, Cygnus, Betelgeuse. That's 5. The Tibetans are telling us there's 8 more star systems that beings are coming and going from that we're linked with. And I can't wait to find out what those other 8 star systems are. I keep looking. But that's what's in the dome of the Temple of Celestial Liberty in the U.S. Capitol. America is the land of the free, where we were going to be free to be able to achieve our true spiritual divinity. And it's up to us to keep that dream alive. And we keep it alive by manifesting this light body ourselves, by connecting with this deepest aspect of ourselves and recognizing that what we're talking about here is this idea, as I call it, of Stargate metaphysics. And all around the world now, we're starting to see examples of this incredible Stargate art that's popping up. And that's a real affirmation to me that, hey, we're on the right path here. That this new consciousness, the shift has happened, and we're all living this new consciousness now. And as we see more and more examples of Stargates in civic art, as we see examples of Stargates in movies and elsewhere, it tells us, hey, we're getting plugged in here. We're connecting up to this divine matrix, if you will, of these ascended cultures and civilizations. So I'm going to show you a couple more examples of this art here because I really want to try to anchor it in your body and give you a sense of what you're really walking around in here. This is a Tibetan Thangka, rainbow body Thangka, late 17th century. It shows our Tibetan Lama from the top down this time. And as we come in, we see his skirt here almost looks like he's a dancer or something. He's got this swirling rainbow energy around him. And as we come in close, a little tighter, we see that his body is covered with stars because he's in his star body or his light body, the rainbow body or glory body. Now, I was on a cruise ship in Luxor, Egypt a number of years ago, and we were treated that night to a whirling dervish dancer. And this whirling dervish comes out and he starts spinning in place. He's going into a meditative state, and he's going to tell us the story about how to link earth with heaven. And so he goes into this meditative state and he starts spinning his skirt. And the next thing I know, He's got what looks like a UFO spinning around his body. And this guy's like a master UFO spinner. This looks like Elijah ascending in his whirlwind, or all the other ascended beings that ascend in their whirlwinds. And he keeps spinning, and I'm just blown away by what I'm seeing here. And the next thing I know, I'm completely blown away because he pulls out a second skirt and starts spinning it. And now he has turned his body into the shape of a what? You said it, not me. Yeah, that's right. Here's our wormhole. And here is our wormhole dancer. This is an 800-year-old mystic Islamic dance that tells the story of the unity of heaven and earth. How did they know the body can be transformed into a wormhole? Unless some advanced master beings came here and taught them how to do this. And this is how this teaching is encoded. It's not in any text, it's in images, and it's in art. It's in dances that can be transmitted across time and across generations. And this is how it's preserved. Does an 800-year-old mystic Islamic dance encode the ultimate secrets of modern physics? I believe it does. And we just spent $1 trillion in the past 10 years prosecuting a war on terror against Islam. Why didn't we just grab the $1 trillion and bring these dancers over to MIT and Harvard and Stanford and Princeton and all these weapons labs and say, let's just build wormholes instead of weapons of mass destruction? Amen. It's right in front of our eyes all the time. It's just there. We've just got to shift our focus, our attention. So what happens is at the end of the dance, our dancer collapses his second skirt, wraps it into a bundle. His assistant brings out this linen shroud. They wrap the bundle and feed it milk for us Western dummies. Get it? How did you get here? Did you ever give that any thought? How did you get here? How did your soul get here? This is saying it came through a Stargate. Then you spent a time in your mother's womb. Then you came through her birth canal, another Stargate. And now you're in the 3D Earth matrix, wandering around in your orange prison jumpsuit, going, what am I doing here? Where did I come from? And how do I get the hell out of here when I'm ready to leave? The church wants you in your lower chakras thinking about, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Who am I going to sleep with? Right? But once you start looking at this, and you start connecting with your higher energy centers, your heart center up, you're thinking, where did I come from? I was just floating around out there in the cosmic ocean. Then I get sucked through this wormhole. Now I come out and I'm in one of these things here. What am I doing here? What have I got to work out? Oh, that's right. I've got to become a being of pure light and pure love again. And so I'm going to work all that out. And then I'm going to leave. And when I leave, I'm going to learn how to open that gateway once again. So here's a clear correspondence between the Tibetan and the mystic Islamic tradition that corresponds, of course, with the Egyptian and the Christian and elsewhere. It's like a mirror, if you will, and the mirror has been shattered. And what we're trying to do is put all the pieces of the mirror back together so that when we look in that mirror, we see our true selves, our true divine selves, which are members of the immortal race of the perfect light humans. Now, once they've achieved their perfect body, their light body, rainbow body, the Tibetans, and this comes from the Dalai Lama's secret temple once again, they're shown floating around the cosmos in their rainbow rings, which of course is why Jesus is shown floating around on the rainbow ring, because he is representative of this race of beings. Now, I have friends and colleagues in the ancient aliens business, and they'll show a piece of art like this, and they'll say, oh, here comes Jesus in his flying saucer. Well, now we know what we're actually looking at here is not a flying saucer. These aren't UFOs that are flying around. They're fully identified. We know exactly what these clouds that Jesus and the other ascended beings ride around on. They float around the cosmos on their rainbow rings. They're light beings. And that's how he comes and goes. He manifests the light body and morphs back and forth, or phases back and forth between the dimensions. So Jesus and Mary here are just exactly like the Tibetan lamas. Same thing, same teaching. Probably going from star system to star system, waking up all these planets and the planetary civilizations. So let's, we've got like hopefully 37 minutes left here. I'm going to talk real fast just in case, we get the hook a little prematurely here. Let's talk about the cosmic conduit that the divine can do. The cosmic conduit, the divine can do it. This is Christian Last Judgment art from Russia, 14th century. It's an anomaly to Christian art historians. What's this serpent linking Earth down here, up here with the throne of Christ? Thank you. Well done. I don't know why scholars can't see that, but that's what it is. This is the cosmic conduit that links Earth with the throne of Christ, and as I'm proposing, in the galactic core. There are numerous examples of this art that I've collected, and the scholars that look at it are just completely baffled by it. But what we also see here, close to Christ's thorn, is this object last night, which the object we discussed last night, the Etomatia, the throne of the second coming, which is Christ's tool or device that he utilizes at the time of the second coming. It's composed of the cross, it's composed of the spear of destiny, the sponge, the scroll, the robe of light, which is our light body, by the way, and the jar containing the sacred oil. And we looked at this image last night as well with the two angels on either side, and I said this is the complete Ark of the Covenant. And it is shown in this artwork of the last judgment of the second coming, and here's the Ark of the Covenant as the base or platform for it. It is always shown close to Jesus or the ascended Christ because it's his device. But what I didn't get to show you last night that I want to finish up and then we'll go forward is that this is the throne of Christ right here. And you see Christ up above in this blue ring or wheel, which is his light body vehicle. This is the throne of Buddha, which is a throne and a footstool, a tree, and a wheel. They're exactly the same symbol. This is the Bodhi tree or enlightenment tree of Buddha. The throne, the footstool, the tree up above. The throne, the footstool, the cross, and the tree of life are interchangeable. So both the throne of Buddha and the throne of Christ are exactly the same thing. The reason why they are the same thing is because both religious traditions were trying to communicate the same concept. This is a kit of tools that we are to assemble within our own consciousness. We are to recognize that we are this throne. And what we're to do, part of our quest in the earth plane, is to transform our body into a throne capable of holding the Christ vibration or holding the enlightened vibration of the awakened Buddha. That is what our body is designed to do. The oldest version of this throne comes from ancient Egypt with Osiris. This is the throne of the Egyptian god of resurrection, Osiris. It's the same ark platform with the same tree attached to it. The throne of Christ, the throne of Osiris are the same thing. And both traditions teach the same thing. We are to assemble this kit of tools within ourself. And so the throne of Buddha, throne of Osiris, throne of Christ, all the same thing. And here's what I believe it is. It is our body. The lower three chakras, I'll skip forward here to this one, is actually what we think of as the Ark of the Covenant. It is the platform or the container. The tree that is attached is our spinal cord. The two tablets up on top here are the two hemispheres of our brain. But our fundamental problem is that our culture wants us to live down here. What am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Who am I going to sleep with? Because as soon as you learn that you've got this stairway to heaven attached in your spinal cord system, now your life's questions change. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? How do I leave? What's my exit strategy when I'm ready to go? Now you're becoming a fully functional human being. That's the last thing the religious and political authorities want you to become, is fully functional, whole, holy, and complete, because now you're completely out of control. But once you do put your pieces together, Now you become an antenna, if you will, a throne, a vessel capable of holding this higher dimensional energy. The Mayans used the exact same symbolism. My UFO friends try to tell you that this is Pakal on his rocket ship, which is absolutely and patently absurd, because the Mayans themselves told us this is Pakal on his throne journeying into the afterlife. It's not a rocket ship. And anybody that tells you that is conning you. In fact, what you can see here is that Pakal on his throne with the tree attached is, and here he is in his afterlife traveling suit. He's turned into the Green Man, just like Osiris. His Pakal on his throne with the tree attached is exactly the same thing as Jesus coming out of his ark box with the tree attached. It's about the journey into the afterlife. And you're not going to journey into the afterlife, my friends, in a rocket ship. It's just not, it's just, I hope you all, I don't have to say any more, do I? Okay, good. So my ancient alien friends need to do a little bit of investigation here and figure out, or go read what the Mayans said this was, the journey into the afterlife, and put the pieces together. So now let's get back to these maps. And as our lady friend over here said, yes, this serpent rope linking Earth with these higher dimensional zones here, I believe, is a wormhole. And in fact, the Christian art historians who have studied this show us that, in fact, these serpents usually have 19 to 21 marks on them, which they themselves call those cosmic toll booths. How about cosmic stargates? These are paths along the way in the afterlife realm. So what they're showing us here is this layer cake motif once again, these higher dimensional zones of frequency or vibration. We're always rising higher and higher. And there is this conduit that links Earth with the throne of Christ. The Mayans knew all about this cosmic conduit. They called it a serpent rope. And they described how Quetzalcoatl, whose name means the feathered serpent, which is exactly the same definition of the Hebrew word seraphim, they show him descending from this 8-spoked wheel here, which they said is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. He descends to the earth plane riding upon his serpent rope with the same kind of notches or marks along the way, cosmic toll booths that are mapped out. So the Mayan shamans in their journeys must have known that we journey from Earth to the galactic center via a system, a transportation system of wormholes. So we've got the same notches on the serpent, we've got the same serpent, the same ascent, and by the time we get up here, we see the Heavenly Father, as he's described, in an 8-spoked wheel that's exactly the same as the Mayan 8-spoked wheel. Now what this tells me is that the Mayan artists and the Christian artists must have been pulling from the same source material. They must have known about this path of souls business, these navigational maps that teach us how to go from Earth on up to the galactic center. And here's Quetzalcoatl presented or portrayed as the feathered serpent, which is the very same as the seraphim. And this is how I believe the seraphim travel from the throne, the galactic center, to Earth. It's via these wormholes. And these traditions from Egypt to the Mayans to the Christians to others know about these wormhole systems and how Earth is connected with the galactic center. And this is what we want to realize is, in fact, again, the wormhole. And part of our Earth training is to practice this, to get a hold of these maps so that we can orient ourselves towards this afterlife realm as a being of pure light and pure love, living our life with the expectation that we will become these light beings, and knowing the way to get there is to love with all our heart, with all our mind and all our soul. And once we have that, then we need the map. And that's what all these traditions are encoding, is we've got the afterlife realm mapped out for you. We know who the beings that you'll meet along the way are, the various navigational features that you'll encounter, and our destination is the galactic center. So to me, it would be wise then to spend time learning about the galactic core, learning about these various other star civilizations, what stargates are, all this sort of thing. And this is what I believe William Blake has shown for us in his painting here, is this same spiraling, corkscrewing serpent rope that leads from Earth into the center, through the sun to the center of the galaxy. This is one of my favorite paintings that illustrates this concept. It's by a Japanese painter named Kano Hagai. It shows Kuan Yin, the Buddhist goddess of compassion. She's got a rod in her hand with a string attached to it. The string then goes down here to this orb, this golden orb with a baby soul in it. And as we come into the detail here, we see that this baby soul has a umbilical cord wrapped around it. And it's looking back up at Kuan Yin saying, I don't want to go. Why do I want to go to Earth? You know, what have I done? I want to stay with you. Whatever. You know, fill it, write your own caption here. But we see this umbilical cord, this serpentine umbilical cord coming down here to this craggy, rocky area that Kano Hagai says is Earth. And that's why we're here. Because compared to where we come from, Earth needs a little bit of work. Light workers. You know, the quest isn't to leave here as much as it is to make Earth like where we came from and to create and hook up the cosmic conduit. For some reason, it's been broken. And there's like this search and rescue mission that's gone on by these higher advanced light beings who have come here to remind us and to hook us up with the cosmic conduit, with the wormhole, and to remind us about our earthly mission to make Earth like heaven. The whole new heaven on earth business. I know you know about that. And this is what's encoded within our DNA, is this capability, that serpent rope, as above, so below, as within, so without. It's within us. Dante wrote about this in his Paradiso, where he shows this cosmic conduit coming up this earthly mountain, going through 7 halls or holes in space, very typical number of the number of stargates along the way. It's a beautiful photo of Mount Shasta with the Milky Way as a cosmic conduit or pillar above it. And there are various mountains around the world that are described as these sanctuaries or portals or gateways into the Milky Way. One of them is here in southern France, Mont Ségur, the Mount of Salvation, where the Cathars taught this very teaching that I'm describing to you today. Claire and I were there back in May with a group. We're returning in September. And if you want to spend 10 days with us in the journeying to the portals of sacred southern France, please get in touch with us after the event or come to my website, williamhenry.net, for details. We'd love to have you join us and explore this, the magnificent teaching that the Cathars left us, and also this just beautiful, beautiful place. But artwork throughout the ages just refers to this cosmic conduit constantly to remind us that this is the tunnel of light of the near-death experience. It's the bright white light that we come from when we enter into earthly incarnation, and the way has been mapped out for us. And along the way, we're going to experience earthly trials and tribulations that are all about cleansing, purifying, raising our soul's vibration, so that at such time as we're ready, we're prepared to make the leap into our next level of manifestation. And it will be a spontaneous morphing into our light body. And it's, like I say, it's in us. We are the caterpillars that can morph into these butterflies. And have you ever seen a caterpillar go to school? You know, caterpillars know how to do it. They watch others morph. And this is what we need to do, is to watch each other morph into our light being phase. And as we start doing it, as I said, here comes the 100th monkey effect that will assist all of us in making this a routine type of occurrence. So what I'm going to say to you is that these silver orbs here could well be the silver cord that King Solomon wrote about that gets severed at the time of death. And then we journey through that silver cord. And chances are the silver cord is what Hieronymus Bosch is showing for us here with this silver tunnel of light or tunnel of love. My final comment, and then we'll go to questions, relates to this Tibetan Tanka. I was in Tempe, Arizona a couple of years ago giving a presentation on this, and a gentleman came up to me afterward and said, wow, great presentation. I've been teaching the rainbow body for 19 years, he said. Really put some cool stuff together. Those maps you showed were phenomenal. And he says, I've got a Tibetan tanka at home. I'm going to take a picture of it and bring it to you. And this is it right here. And what was cool about that is that I happened to be in Washington, D.C. last summer it was, talking about this. And I showed this image and a woman said, I bought him that tanka. So it was just cool to make that connection. That's another reason why I like to let people know where my sources are, because you never know who you're talking to. You guys probably know far more about this subject than I do, and you're just humoring me by letting me babble on up here about what I see about all this. So he comes back with this tanka, and I'm like, my gosh, look at this. There's our serpent rope, which is actually the Milky Way, guys. And what happens in the Tibetan tradition, they show how we all start out down here as these gray elephants. And we go through we're on our path here, and we see these monkeys and fires, and these are the trials and tribulations that the soul goes through in its path of purification. And as we go on our path here, which can be lifetime after lifetime, we're gradually turning from gray elephants to pink elephants until we get higher up here, and we're now half gray, half pink, and we get up higher, and now we're all pink. And then we get up to the top, we're all pink, and here's this rainbow bridge that links us to the rainbow bridge or the rainbow throne of the pure ones of the Buddhist tradition. And now we see the pink elephants coming and going, because this illustrates the teaching that once we get up to this high level, we can come back and forth at will. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, and I'm not going to say this from an ego point of view, but my sense is that if you're here listening to this to me on this Saturday afternoon, you got to be mostly pink. And I look out here and I see a bunch of pink elephants sitting out here. Because I know you wouldn't be here if you haven't been doing this work. And you're ready to dust off some of that gray stuff and become more fully pink. And maybe if I'm lucky here, I've offered a couple of tidbits that will help you to let go of some of that gray stuff, and that rainbow bridge will manifest for you. And you'll know not only what to do, but how to do it. And then it might be that you'll come back and show others how to do this as well. So to me, the Christian Last Judgment art showing the serpent rope, and the Tibetan tanka showing the white serpent, which is actually the Milky Way, of course, are telling the exact same story. So that's my presentation. It looks like I've got about 10 minutes left to entertain any questions or comments, which I'll be happy to do. We would just ask that if you have a question that you'll use the microphone, and that'd be great. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you go back to the picture of the yogi and re-explain how the body represents what you've been talking about?
The yogi.
Yes.
Which one?
The picture of the person sitting in the meditative position.
Okay.
Yes, and the chakras. Yeah.
Okay. This one? Okay. So what we have here is a meditating woman superimposed over the throne of Osiris. The throne of Osiris is this right here. To the ancient Egyptians, that symbolized the ladder, tower, or stairway to heaven. They also called it the tree of life. And what I did is I made the comparison between the tree on the throne of Buddha, this is the throne and this is the tree, and we compared that to the tree or the cross on top of the throne with the footstool of Christ. And I'm saying this is symbolically all the same thing. And all three of these represent awakening, enlightenment, and human transformation. So then what I did is I took the throne of Osiris and superimposed it over the meditating woman. And what I came to is the realization or speculation that our lower three chakras actually represent the platform or the arc upon which the tree, our spinal cord system, is placed. And at the top of our spinal cord are the two hemispheres of our brain. At the top of the Osiris pillar or tower are 2 tablets, which of course correspond with the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. And what I was saying here is that this represents the fully functioning human being. When all of our chakras are aligned, when they're all operating, and we have our tree connected with our ark or throne. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
You can also ask questions about his talk yesterday.
Yeah.
And also, what is the significance of the footstool?
Well, the footstool is, in the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant is referred to as the footstool of God. And so when you see the footstool in these images, like you see here and you see here, it's a symbolic way of saying this represents the presence of God. It's because his feet are placed then on the earth on this throne or at this location.
That's what it says. It says that the earth is God's footstool.
That's right. And
Earth is God's footstool. I think that's what the Bible says or something.
The Bible does say the earth is God's footstool. And that's a very important comment because what it suggests, I mean, why would Christ or God need a device like the Ark of the Covenant? Or why would Osiris need a device like this? Although we've never found a working machine that looks like this, just like we haven't actually found a working machine, a device that is the Ark of the Covenant. And my sense is the earth itself at one time was the ark. And what that means is that the earth itself was probably vibrating at such a frequency that we could have this direct connect with the heavenly realms. But then for some reason, the connection was severed with the cosmic conduit. And so then maybe they needed a device that would be able to duplicate or maybe kickstart the planet in a way in order to bring this frequency or vibration back to the planet. But once again, the earth is in its own spiral of ascension and is thought to one day, according to Christian prophecy, be that ark once again, so that the planet itself will be ringing or singing at this higher vibration that they're trying to introduce with this device. This may have something to do with what they call the Schumann resonance, where the earth was at one time resonating at 7.8 hertz and is thought to jump to 13. And Greg Braden and others have talked about this jump and a magnetic shift and pole shift that will accompany it that will change the frequency of the earth itself. And so it could have something to do with that. But good point about the earth itself being the footstool. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, if you have a question, wait 1 second till the mic gets to you so we get it, the audio.
This is a simple one. Yesterday you were talking about a human transmuting into an angel via the beam of light.
Yeah.
Can you describe what an angel means in that context? What an angel means?
An angel is a celestial being, a light being, a being that has a humanoid, but a humanoid form, but a non-physical existence. In other words, not a flesh and blood being, but they have the ability of morphing into physicality and taking on the human flesh and blood form, and then morphing back into their light being form. Okay. Yes.
We've been talking a lot about rainbows, so I wanted to know what the rainbow connection was when we come out of after a storm, and I kind of understand the scientific principles that have to be present. So what spiritual connection is there between that physical rainbow and the rainbows that exist in the celestial? Yeah,
well, I mean, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the story of Noah's Ark, after Noah's Ark lands, the rainbow manifested is a symbol of the promise or the covenant. It's the Ark of the covenant that God would never again destroy the earth by flood. But in other traditions, the rainbow symbolizes the bridge. Like, for example, in the Nordic tradition, it's called the Bifrost Bridge. That is the rainbow bridge that links earth with heaven. So you can think of it as either a symbol of a promise of hope or as a bridge linking earth and heaven.
You know, I always feel so good when I see one.
Yeah.
And I feel so relieved for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like it is a promise of something really special.
Exactly.
And we don't see them very often. When we do, people are just, I look
Mesmerized.
around and everybody else is going, oh, a rainbow. You know,
Right.
like-
Exactly. Exactly.
So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I thought you were going to make the Kermit the Frog connection with the rainbow connection.
Yes, I've heard you talk about the light of Zion before, and recently in 2013, I've been reading a lot about different scientists that have been measuring these particles coming from the center of the galaxy toward us, and going through our sun, coming as cosmic rays, changing the gamma rays, affecting us. And in fact, scientists are showing that there's a whole new kind of field surrounding the Earth, around the magnetic field now. And I'm rediscovering what I was taught when I was a child, that when you reach up, there's always a hand that reaches back halfway. And I think God is doing that with us from the center of the galaxy. And all these suns are connected with each other to a greater sun.
Absolutely.
Everything is connected. And I was wondering if you could speak on that, because here in 2013, the scientists have brought us so much evidence that this is actually really true.
Yeah, it is true. And I mean, think about it. If 500 years ago I stood before you and said Earth was not the center of the universe, and I was in Rome, they would have burned me and probably you too for entertaining such a thought. And now we know that Earth is not the center and the sun isn't the center. Now we're becoming oriented towards the center of our galaxy. That's 2013. Give it 10 years, and we're not even going to identify ourselves with the galactic center. We're probably going to be thinking about some galaxy cluster of 1,000 galaxies that has this cosmic center that we're part of. And so part of what, again, we talked about earlier that we want to be focusing on is just gaining acquaintance with the galactic center. There's a wonderful website I go to every morning. It's called thedailygalaxy.com. dailygalaxy.com, and it's daily reports about new discoveries about the Milky Way, about high energy cosmic rays coming from the galactic center that come through our sun, that are changing the vibration of our sun and hence raising our vibration. So all this talk about us going through an ascension and all that has an actual basis in scientific fact. And they are showing this. And the next step from that is to be able to harness those cosmic rays and to catch those and utilize them for our awakening. In my extended path of souls research, I'll bring in the teaching of Akhenaten and the Aton disk of ancient Egypt, where he's basking in the rays of the Aton, which symbolizes the light that illuminates the sun, that probably came from the galactic center, because they are showing now that our sun and the galactic center, they call that the black sun or the hidden sun, are connected. And when our sun goes into like a coronal mass ejection, it could be from some super wind coming from the center of the galaxy, pushing out this cosmic debris or cosmic winds of charged particles. And Akhenaten seems to have intuited that. And what his teaching was about was being able to catch these cosmic rays, bring them into our body and allow them to illuminate our bodies, and then be able to ride those rays back through the sun to the galactic center. So this is why, I mean, we have to pay attention to the galactic center and all that's happening. And I mean, think back to 2012 and how the Mayan prophecy asked us to look to the galactic center, and how, you know, that prophecy was given over 1,000 years ago. And, you know, there must have been some cosmic intelligence that knew that at this time, around 2012, we would have these satellites that would be able to pierce the veil of the galactic center that prevents us from seeing it with the naked eye and see into that realm. And it's just remarkable, the opportunity that we've been given at this time to absorb this knowledge. So, good question. And again, follow up on dailygalaxy.com for more updates on what's going on with the galactic core. You'll be really surprised about how much we know now.
Hold on. You need to wait. You need to wait.
When you speak of the light body, is that these cosmic rays are meeting us halfway, and that they're actually changing our DNA. Scientists have evidence of that we are going through an evolutionary phase.
Yes.
It's not just a religious or philosophical
No.
thing. It's a real scientific, now confirmed by very prestigious scientists throughout the world, that our DNA is changing.
That's right. And then it's, there's a simple connection to make that it's because of this cosmic influence. It could be, there are a couple of schools of thought on that. One that we're on the receiving end of this wave of cosmic energy or rays coming from the galactic center, or we're entering into a zone of the galaxy where the energy is higher. And either way, the effect is the same. It's a flowering, if you will, or awakening of our DNA and an unfolding of our true cosmic potential. So stay tuned.
We have a question here from... Okay.
7 cosmic rays of creation, 7 chakras. The colors of the rays are the color of the rainbow.
Yeah.
The rainbow are the colors of the chakras. It's time for balance
Yep.
and the increase in all of this wonderful energy.
Right.
If you don't know about the 7 rays that come from each star of the Big Dipper
Yep.
and come from the source,
Yeah.
it's time to learn it, because this is where the work is for ascension.
Yeah, we count the chakras. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All good children go to heaven. That's what that means. that's what that means. And we get it from when we're this high. What other nursery rhymes can we make up, or little things like that can teach us from a young age how to awaken this, right? So how are we doing time-wise?
You're maybe a couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes. Okay, good.
This woman here's had her hand up for a long time. Here. Maybe that'll be the last one then.
Okay.
Just wanted to say one thing. We have a friend back home that refers to our bodies as her meat suit. So she refers to her as her meat suits,
Right.
giving her problems.
Right.
But my question is from last night, and there was when you were showing pictures of Jesus on the throne. In his left hand, there would either be a book or a scroll. And sometimes there was writing on it, sometimes it was blank. And one time it looked like there was musical notes. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, and I wondered what, if any, part you know of that as music have with this alchemy process.
Well, yeah, it's all to me about tones or vibrations, really. And we all are like a crystal bowl, one of those singing crystal bowls. And that homework assignment I gave you, that to-do list, if you will do those things, those new actions will be equivalent to the mallet going around the rim of the bowl. And the idea is that as you start doing those things gradually and slowly, suddenly your vibration is going to raise. And as with the crystal bowl, suddenly there's going to be a big wow moment where where you just suddenly takes off. And that's the quote-unquote magic that we're all trying to get happening here. And the way we do that is by uniting the male, which is the mallet, and the female, which is the bowl, and start doing those things that represent yourself at that next level of vibration. And as you do those things, you will raise yourself to that vibration. So it's all about raising your tone, your frequency, or your vibration through your action is the key thing. So thank you all very much. This has been a really wonderful afternoon with a great audience. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves, physically, emotionally, and spiritually?